Chapter 640. Actually, in the beginning, Noah had never thought of fusing the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear into his body and using it for himself. The reason was simple. It wasn't because the divine gear that had the ability to infinitely multiply its power didn't move Noah, but because the sacred gear's uniqueness made it impossible for Noah to have any ideas about it. Everyone knew that the sacred gear was created by the God of the Bible. According to the records of the artificial sacred gear creation technique provided by Ather, after the god passed away, the sacred gear created by the god continued to exist under the control of the sacred gear's system. In other words, the management of the sacred gear's lodging, function, effectiveness, performance, and so on were all managed by the sacred gear's system, which was left behind by God. In this way, if Noah integrated the sacred gear into his body, it would inevitably cause two problems. 1. With Noah's tyrannical physique, after the sacred gear was integrated into Noah's body, if it was directly absorbed by Noah's body, it would completely become Noah's own power. Wouldn't that cause the system to be unable to manage the sacred gear in Noah's body, causing the sacred gear's function to become ineffective? If that was the case, then Noah would only be integrating a useless tool into his body, so it would be better not to have it. 2. If the sacred gear is still effective after being absorbed by Noah's tyrannical physique, does that mean that the sacred gear will no longer be able to activate the sacred gear once we leave this world and go to another world? Will the sacred gear become an inanimate object? This was also a problem. It must be known that Noah couldn't always stay in this world. After finding the world fragment, Noah would leave this world and go to the next world. At that time, if the system's management of the sacred gear could not pass through the world barrier and continue to take effect on Noah, then the sacred gear in Noah's body would be equivalent to being useless. Because of these two considerations, Noah didn't want to integrate the sacred gear made by the god into his body. Instead, he was very interested in the artificial sacred gear provided by Ather. After all, the artificial sacred gear of a satchel did not need to be managed by a system. All the functions of the sacred gear were within the sacred gear itself. Because of this, without the management of a system, most of the artificial sacred gear of a satchel were useless trash. Only a few of the sacred gear that had been cleverly processed with special methods were useful. And Noah didn't need so many sacred gear. As long as there was one that was useful, that was enough. Therefore, compared to the proper sacred gear, the artificial sacred gear was more interesting to Noah. But now, because of the strange movements of the draconian and golden wolf avatars, Noah changed his mind. Wang. The scarlet-red ferocious gauntlets trembled and integrated into Noah's body. When he closed his eyes, Noah could clearly feel that the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear that had entered his body was disintegrating bit by bit. Gradually, it turned into the purest form of energy, and it could not even maintain its form. Noah's consideration was indeed correct. Since the sacred gear that had integrated into his body had been decomposed into the purest form of power, it was definitely out of the system's control and could no longer take effect. However, at this time, other changes occurred in Noah's body. First of all, the pure power that had entered his body suddenly split into two and integrated into Noah's body bit by bit, coming into contact with Noah's authority. Immediately, the two powers split into two. One flowed into the draconian, and the other flowed into the golden wolf, fusing with the power of the two avatars. The next moment, Noah felt his head buzzing, and his consciousness began to fade away. When Noah opened his eyes again, the scene that entered his eyes really gave Noah a fright. Pung! Only to see, with the sound of swelling, bursts of red flames burning around Noah, dyeing the entire space red. This was a space where there was nothing but flames. And in such a space, there were no other colors besides red. Noah was in such a red space, suspended above a sea of fire, surrounded by bursts of red flames. Undoubtedly, the surrounding was a sea of fire, but Noah did not feel the slightest bit of heat. Yo, my new partner, welcome to my place. At this time, a low voice suddenly sounded around him. Although I want to say that, but in fact, this is the depths of your soul. It should be me who has come to your territory. Fate really makes fools of people. With such a voice, in the sea of fire in front of him, a huge creature lifted the flames, straightened its body, and imprinted itself into Noah's eyes. It was a giant dragon. It was a gigantic dragon that was covered in red scales and surrounded by flames. Its entire body was emitting a terrifying pressure. Feeling the pressure from the giant dragon, Noah instantly understood. The giant dragon in front of him, in terms of strength, was probably not below Noah, who had the authority of the 10 incarnations, and was the God Slayer. Don't be so nervous, partner. Not knowing if it was aware of Noah's thoughts, the red giant dragon's voice became a little lighter. No matter how strong I am, that was when I was alive. Now I'm just a soul, and because I entered your body, I was directly absorbed by you and became a part of your soul. The saying of a soul in one body is most suitable to describe our current relationship. Speaking of this, the giant dragon's tone suddenly changed. Besides, if you are wary of me, the other existence in your soul will no longer be polite to me. Just as the giant dragon's voice fell, an earth-shattering roar resounded through the entire world of flames. Roar. In the midst of such a resounding roar, the sky and this space suddenly shook and turned into a bright golden color. A golden wolf that was not inferior in size to the dragon leaped out of the golden sky. With a boom, it landed directly in the red sea of fire. It ignored the surrounding flames and stared at the dragon with its ferocious beast eyes. It bared its fangs. Noah immediately stood up in surprise. Bo? Hearing Noah's voice, Bo did not turn back to respond to Noah. Instead, he stared closely at the giant dragon in front of him, his eyes full of vigilance. Bo, who even Warban and Luo Hao could not do anything to, was actually so wary of the giant dragon. One could imagine how strong the giant dragon was. However, since even Bo appeared here, it proved that the giant dragon's words were indeed true. This was the depths of Noah's soul. This was because Bo was lodging in Noah's soul. He was another consciousness in Noah's soul, an existence similar to a doppelganger. The giant dragon that appeared in the depths of Noah's soul, coupled with what it had just said, gave Noah a guess. Yes, I have now become an existence similar to your doppelganger, just like that wolf. Chapter 641. That's right, I have indeed become an existence similar to your doppelganger, just like that wolf. When the red dragon said this, Noah's heart calmed down, and he suddenly felt enlightened. Thus, Noah controlled his body and lightly floated into the air. He then landed on the head of Bo, whose body size was not much different from the dragon in front of him, and looked forward. You are the Red Dragon Emperor of the 2 heavenly dragons, right? Have you guessed it? The dragon's ferocious beast eyes moved down and met Noah's gaze. That's right, I am the Red Dragon Emperor of the 2 heavenly dragons, Drake. In the ancient war between the 3 great powers, the Crimson Sky Dragon had fought with another Sky Dragon on the battlefield and messed up the entire battle. The Crimson Sky Dragon's soul had been turned into a sacred gear because of that. Now, that dragon appeared in the depths of Noah's soul, and even claimed to be another doppelganger of Noah, just like Bo. To be honest, I am very surprised. Drake said to Noah with great interest. I never thought that as a soul sealed in the sacred gear, would actually come back to life in this form, and become your doppelganger and partner. Your origin seems to be very unusual. Since you have become an existence with the same soul as me, just like Bo, living as my doppelganger and lodging in my soul, then you will soon know my origin. There is no need to ask. Noah shook his head and looked straight at Drake. It's just that I never thought that after fusing with the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, you would be released from the sacred gear, and even your soul would fuse into one. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Well, for you and me, it should be a good thing, right? Drake said directly. Now, I have become another consciousness in your soul. I can feel that, just like the wolf, as long as you, as the main body, provide magic, I can materialize the soul that is fused with you, and become your beast to help you fight. This way, I can also move around outside for a short period of time. This is a good thing, right? If this is not a good thing, then I really don't know what is. Noah bitterly laughed. Being able to use you as one of the two heavenly dragons, even I feel a little unbelievable when I think of this fact. One must know that the two dragons known as the two heavenly dragons were the ones that messed up the battlefield of the three powers, and made the three powers helpless. They could only be led by the gods and the demon king, they could only be subdued. Therefore, among the top 10 existences that Wally once mentioned, Drake could definitely occupy a place to be. In other words, Noah had obtained a doppelganger that could be ranked in the top 10 of this world, and would definitely not be weaker than any of the god slayers. This was not something that could be described as great improvement in strength. Don't say that, partner. Drake glanced at Bio, who was staring at him under Noah's body, and said with a smile that was not a smile. That wolf's strength is not below mine. To be able to have such a doppelganger, perhaps, you absorbing my soul is something that was destined, right? Then, Drake, as the center of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, your soul has already fused with my soul. Can I still use the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear? Noah asked what he was concerned about. I have always felt that with my physique, I would definitely directly absorb the power of the sacred gear that entered my body, and would no longer be controlled by the sacred gear system. This way, the sacred gear that has always existed under the control of the sacred gear system should directly lose its effect, right? Perhaps, the other sacred gears are like this, but I am different. Drake replied. The ability of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear originally came from my own strength. The God of the Bible sealed my soul into the sacred gear, which allowed the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear to be born. Now, you have completely absorbed my strength and soul. Even if the sacred gear is no longer under the control of the system, it should still be effective. Hearing this, Noah's eyes lit up, and his heart suddenly shook. That is to say, I can still use the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear? It should be possible. Drake nodded. I can feel that when I entered your body, my strength and soul that was residing in the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear were separated. My soul directly merged with your soul and became your doppelganger. My strength seemed to have been absorbed by your body, so it should still be effective. Speaking up to this point, Drake's tone became a little complicated. Originally, after the death of the sacred gear host, the sacred gear in the host's body would automatically be transferred to the next host. Now that my existence has already separated from the sacred gear, I have become your doppelganger. Although I am happy that I can still move around outside, if you, as the main body, die, as the doppelganger, I will definitely die. Really, is this a good thing? Hearing this, Noah finally remembered. When it merged into Noah's body, the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear was indeed separated into two forces. One force merged into the Dragon Man doppelganger, and the other merged into the Golden Wolf doppelganger. If what Drake said was true, then Noah's two doppelganger should have also changed. Thinking up to this point, Noah could no longer sit still. Then, Drake, I will go out first and see if there are any changes to my strength. I will take care of you in the future, partner. Drake laughed. The little guy called Bio, as another consciousness in the soul, is also a doppelganger of the main body. We will also take care of you in the future. Bio glanced at Drager and turned his head away, ignoring Drager. Seeing this, Drake bitterly smiled. So cold, as expected of a wolf. Looking at the interaction between Drager and Bio, Noah smiled faintly and flashed, disappearing on the spot. Noah realized that two of the pictures in his 10 doppelganger had changed. One of them turned into a crimson dragon. The other turned into a herd of beasts running wildly in the distance. After coming into contact with these two pictures, Noah learned how to use the new doppelganger. Dragon Emperor, a doppelganger formed by combining the power of the Dragon Man and the Red Dragon Emperor. Ability 1, able to transform the body into a dragon's constitution and use the power of the dragon. Ability 2, able to possess the power of Dragon Kill, which is highly lethal to dragons. Ability 3, able to obtain the power of Air Scales, which is comparable to an immortal body. Ability 4, able to possess the power of close combat that surpasses wildness and intuition. Ability 5, able to materialize the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, and use the power of the sacred gear, to obtain the power of multiplication and transfer. Herd of Beasts, a doppelganger formed by combining the souls of the Golden Wolf and the Red Dragon Emperor. Ability 1, able to summon the doppelganger of the fantasy breed, that has the ability to crush everything in the soul for the user to use. Ability 2, able to summon the doppelganger of the Red Dragon Emperor, that has the ability to directly affect the target and ignore any obstacles in the soul for the user to use. Ability 3, able to directly give the user the ability to crush and penetrate. After absorbing the power and soul of the Red Dragon Emperor, Noah's Dragon Man, and Golden Wolf doppelganger finally evolved. Dragon Emperor. Herd of Beasts. Noah became stronger again. Chapter 642. On the rooftop of Horse King Academy, Noah opened the door to the rooftop and walked in. After closing the door, he came to the center. Lowering his head, Noah looked at his hands. He gently clenched his fists and closed his eyes. In Noah's heart, the image of a crimson dragon automatically appeared. All evildoers, be afraid of my power. Now, I will obtain the majesty of 10 mountains, the strength of 100 rivers, and the strength of 1,000 dragons. The majestic me will raise the ferocious power to slay dragons. He chanted the words of obtaining the dragon's power. At this moment, Noah used the Dragon Emperor's incarnation. The power of a dragon burst out from Noah's body and flowed into his limbs, filling Noah's body. Immediately, Noah suddenly opened his eyes and stretched out his hand. Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. As soon as he finished speaking, Noah's hand suddenly flashed with a dazzling light. The crimson light gradually condensed into substance and turned into a ferocious gauntlet like a dragon's claw. It was a gauntlet that covered Noah's entire body below his elbow. It was completely crimson and there was a bright green jade on the back of his hand. It was none other than the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. As soon as Noah entered the Dragon Emperor avatar's usage state and materialized the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, he immediately obtained 2 ways to use the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. 1. Multiply. Every 10 seconds, it could double Noah's strength. 2. Transfer. It could transfer the increased strength to others and increase the strength of others. These 2 abilities were exactly the same as the rumors. At that moment, Noah poured the magic power in his body into the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear in his hand. Boost. Suddenly, the green jade on the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear flashed with light, and a low voice sounded. The voice was exactly the same as Drake's voice, but it was slightly more mechanical. At the same time, Noah felt that his physical strength, which was originally comparable to a dragon due to the incarnation of the Dragon Emperor, had doubled in an instant. Of course, this increase was only temporary and could only be maintained for a short time. However, to be able to increase his strength every 10 seconds was indeed a violation of the rules. I remember Wally said that if the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear reaches the balance breaker level, then it can multiply its power at any time and in any ratio. Feeling his strength multiplying over and over again with the passing of every 10 seconds, Noah fell into deep thought. If I can also reach balance breaker, then my strength will truly be terrifying. Every sacred gear had its own balance breaker. However, among the possessors of the sacred gear who could achieve the balance breaker, there was probably less than 5% of them who could do so. After all, to reach balance breaker, one's longing and desire had to be so intense that it could reverse the flow of the world. If anyone could do it, then the sacred gear alone would be able to make demons, angels, and fallen angels have no place to stand. They would no longer dare to look down on humans. Reverse the flow of the world. Noah's eyes flickered. It was unknown what he thought, but the corners of his mouth slowly rose. Perhaps, reaching balance breaker wouldn't be difficult for me at all. Just as he said this, Noah felt a sharp pain coming from every part of his body. It was only then that Noah seemed to have thought of something. He hurriedly stopped increasing the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear and smiled bitterly. Infinitely multiplying, sure enough, it is not that easy. Noah had known about this for a long time. If someone really thought that using Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, there was no limit to the increase of power, then they were too naive. To give a simple example, once Noah's giant incarnation was used, the powerful divine power could not be manifested by Noah's human body. He could only summon a giant to manifest the enormous power that could split heaven and earth. Another example was that if the phoenix incarnation was used for too long, Noah's body would not be able to bear the burden. The reason was the same. It was like a truck. Although it could carry a lot of goods, if the truck carried far more goods than it could carry, then not only would it not be able to move, it might even overturn. If the goods were multiplied, then Noah himself was the truck. If the goods were multiplied again and again, Noah's truck would not be able to move, and there would even be times when it would overturn. In other words, if the power increased too much, it would only be a burden on Noah's body. Even if the multiplying of Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear was indeed infinite, Noah, the user, had a limit. This was the limitation of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. Coupled with the fact that it still needed time to be used, Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear had a weakness. In addition, Noah's Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear had another limitation. This limitation was limited to Noah alone. In the next second, Noah cancelled the use of the Dragon Emperor incarnation. Clang! In Noah's hand, Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear flashed and disappeared. As expected. Noah murmured. If I cancel the Dragon Emperor incarnation, does that mean I can't use Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear? After all, it was a power that was fused with authority. Once the use of authority was cancelled, it would naturally not be able to be maintained. This was a limitation that only Noah had. Although there is such a limitation, I have also obtained a power that normal, Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear holders do not have. Noah suddenly smiled. I can summon Drag and have a sky dragon help me fight. In addition, Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear is also free from the system's control. Even if I go to another world, I can still use it. There are pros and cons, but the pros outweigh the cons, therefore, Noah was very satisfied with the result. Bang! At this moment, in a corner of the school, a muffled explosion sounded. Although the sound was weakened due to the distance, Noah still caught it. What's going on? Noah frowned. When he looked at the source of the sound, his expression changed again. It's the direction of the old school. Without hesitation, Noah directly jumped up, fiercely stepped on the fence of the rooftop, jumped, and rushed in the direction of the old school. Clang! When Noah arrived at the old school building, the sound of steel clashing against steel echoed in the air. Noah immediately stopped, looked in front, and was stunned. Clang! He saw that in front of the old school, two people were each holding a sword, fiercely slashing together, causing a lot of sparks. Of the two people, one was holding the holy sword of destruction, Genova. The other one was Kiba Yudo, with a gloomy face and a sinister demonic sword in his hand. Why are these two fighting? Noah was shocked. Then, the door of the old school opened, and Leah's and the Jiminori family all ran out, led by Kiba Yudo. Leah's shouted. Stop right now. To Noah's surprise, Kiba Yudo actually ignored Leah's and continued to charge at Genova. This time, Genova was furious. If that's the case, I won't hold back anymore. With that, Genova raised his holy sword and charged out as well. Chapter 643. Clang! Two long trajectories were drawn as Genova and Shiba Yudo, who were wielding a sacred sword and a demonic sword, collided with each other in the middle of the empty space in front of the old school building, causing a crisp sound of collision. Screech! The sacred sword and demonic sword collided with each other, and the sharp sound of friction produced an unusually violent spark. However, this situation did not last long. Kacha, at a certain moment, the demonic sword in Shiba Yudo's hand made a cracking sound, and Shiba Yudo's expression changed slightly. As a knight, you should be good at speed. You shouldn't be fighting me head-on. Looking at Shiba Yudo's slightly changed expression, Genova seemed to have predicted this situation and said calmly. Although I'm also a knight, I'm not only good at speed. What's more, the holy sword of destruction in my hand is a holy sword that specializes in destruction. You'll only embarrass yourself if you fight me head-on. It's better to calm down first. After that, Genova clenched his fist and suddenly raised the sacred sword in his hand. Bang! The demon sword in Kiba Yudo's hand immediately shattered, turning into pure fragments. It then turned into nothingness and completely disappeared in midair. Shiba Yudo gritted his teeth in hatred. It's not over yet. Amidst the shouts, Kimura Yudo raised his hand. Mana surged in his hand, and a magic formation suddenly expanded from his palm. Inside the formation, another sword with ominous fluctuations appeared and fell into Kimura Yudo's hand. Oh. Genova raised his eyebrows. I see, you are not the user of the demonic sword, but the wielder of the sacred gear? That's right, this is my sacred gear sword birth. It can create any demonic sword that opposes the power of the sacred sword. Shiba Yudo pointed the demonic sword in his hand at Genova. My wish is to destroy all the sacred swords, but in the end, I awakened the sacred gear that can create demonic swords. This is fate. Destroy all the sacred swords? Genova's eyebrows tightly knitted together. Why do you have such a pathetic wish? Is it sad? Kimura Yudo smiled, but his smile was unusually sad. Because my fate has always been very pitiful. Seeing Kiba Yudo's sorrowful expression, Genova's fighting spirit and anger were greatly reduced. I won't deny your past, but I advise you to give up on this idea. Although the holy sword and the demon sword are weapons that counter each other, their power is exactly the same. However, the demon sword in your hand isn't a real demon sword. It's only made from the sacred gear, so its power definitely can't compare to a real demon sword. It won't be able to destroy the holy sword. Perhaps, facing the real king's sword, my sacred gear wouldn't be able to destroy it, but fortunately, the king's sword has been split into 7 pieces, and its power has been greatly reduced. Kiba Yudo coldly said. If it's just a split holy sword, then I can destroy it with my sacred gear. With that, Kiba Yudo raised the demon sword in his hand and charged forward. Seeing this, Genova had no choice but to raise the holy sword and charge forward instead of retreating. Stop! Beside him, Liaz yelled, but she couldn't stop Kiba Yudo from acting on his own. What the hell? That man! Irina yelled as if she was fighting for justice. Can't you give him some time to talk? No one answered Irina's question. Or rather, no one had the time to answer Irina's question. Just as Genova and Kiba Yudo were about to clash again, a figure darted between the two of them. Asterisk clink. Asterisk both the holy sword and the demonic sword came to a stop at the same time with a crisp sound. Because, on the holy sword and the demon sword, there were 2 fingers clamping down on the 2 swords, stopping them in their tracks. Genova and Kiba Yudo were both shocked, and they were only surprised when they saw the full face of the person who clamped the holy sword and the demon sword. Sensei? What are you 2 doing? Noah asked with a frown as he held the holy sword and the demon sword between his fingers with ease. Both of you are Liaz's kin, and you're fighting? Do you want to be a joke? As he spoke, Noah flicked the holy sword and the demon sword between his fingers with all his might. Asterisk clang. Asterisk it was as though a heavy object had struck the 2 swords. Amidst the resounding sound of metal clashing, Genova and Shiba Yudo couldn't stop their bodies from explosively retreating. Only after retreating 2 to 3 steps did they finally come to a stop. Liaz and the others who saw this all breathed a sigh of relief and quickly stepped forward. Yudo. Liaz glared at Kiba Yudo a little angrily. Do you know what you're doing? Of course I know what I'm doing, and I know it very well, Kiba Yudo answered with a cold voice that he had never used before. The minister should know why I'm doing this. Is there a need to ask? Yudo. Liaz suddenly fell silent as if she was sad. Even Zhu Nai and the kitten turned their heads away. Only Aisha, Irina, and Label looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. Perhaps you have your own reasons for doing this. I heard a little of your conversation just now. You're doing this to destroy the holy sword, aren't you? Noah glanced at Kiba. But if your goal is the holy sword, why did you attack Genova? Or are you the type to attack your comrades? Kiba opened his mouth, but he couldn't find the words to retort. Sensei, don't blame him. He did attack the holy sword beside me out of the blue, but I instinctively retaliated. At this time, it was Genova who stood up and spoke up for Yudo. He even said to Yudo, "Don't worry. I'm sorry. I know you have your reasons, but I won't just sit by and watch you destroy the holy sword." Soon, the three factions will have a meeting because of Korkabor. If you destroy the holy sword at this time, it might cause some kind of conflict. Well, although the holy sword can continue to be reforged as long as the core of the holy sword isn't destroyed, who knows if the church will use this as an excuse to make things difficult for the demons in the upcoming meeting between the three forces. Irina seemed to be reminding him kindly. Even if that's the case, it won't matter. Kiba expression became uncertain. I've heard about you from the minister, Genova suddenly said. Can we talk? I have something to tell you. Soon, Genova and Irina led the silent Kiba into a nearby forest. No one knew what they were talking about. Looking at Kiba who was walking into the forest with Genova and Irina, Riaz spoke softly. Do you know about the Holy Sword Project? Noah's heart skipped a beat, but he did not answer. Instead, he chose to listen quietly. Everyone knows that the Holy Sword is the most powerful weapon against demons. As long as a demon touches the Holy Sword, its body will be scorched, killed, or even destroyed. The reason why Genova and Irina can still use the Holy Sword now is because they have adjusted the holy power of the Holy Sword to a mode that demons can use as well, Riaz mumbled to herself. To the believers of the church who believe in their God and see demons as their enemy, the Holy Sword is the ultimate weapon. So, a few years ago, the church tried to cultivate people who can use the Holy Sword. Cultivate? Noah's frown deepened. Can the user of the Holy Sword be cultivated? The only ones who can wield the Holy Sword are those who are naturally suited for it. But wouldn't it be beneficial for the church if they could artificially cultivate those who could wield the Holy Sword? Leith sighed. And so, the Holy Sword Project was born. At this point, Riaz did not need to continue. Noah understood. Kiba was the guinea pig of the Holy Sword Project. And a guinea pig that did not end well. Chapter 644. About an hour later, Genova and Irina brought Kiba into the supernatural research department with a pained expression. There were obvious traces of crying on his face. Seeing this, no one came forward to ask what happened, and no one went to comfort Kiba. They just looked at him quietly and chose to give him silent encouragement. As for what Genova and Irina talked about with Kiba, no one in the room knew. Perhaps Riaz knew about it, but she seemed determined to leave Kiba affairs to Genova and Irina, as if she had steeled her heart to stay out of it. Of course, while no one knew what Genova and Irina said to Kiba no longer attacked the sacred sword madly like before. He even returned to his usual self. After apologizing to Riaz, he stepped aside as if nothing had happened. However, Kiba still told Riaz the truth about Hyodo Kazunari. In other words, the sacred gear is no longer in Hyodo Kazunari's body, and you took out the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear? After listening to Kiba report, Riaz looked at Noah in surprise. Then, where is that Longness now? Noah did not answer. Instead, he used facts to prove his point. The symbol in his heart that represented the Dragon Emperor's incarnation shone. Feeling the draconic power flowing in his body, Noah extended his hand to Riaz. Clang! In the next moment, with a flash, a ferocious crimson gauntlet covered Noah's outstretched arm. All the girls in the room were stunned. You! Riaz gasped in surprise. You've become the host of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear? What's wrong? Noah asked, puzzled. Is there a problem? including Riaz, Junai, Kitten, Aisha, Genova, Irina, Label, and even Kiba Yuto were dumbfounded. What's wrong? There was no problem. However, this fact really made it difficult for him to express his current feelings. Noah was already a god slayer to begin with. Now, with the addition of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, who wouldn't feel their hearts churning? A combination of Campione and Longinus? She laughed bitterly. It's really, like a joke. One had to know that the Longinus was said to be able to destroy gods and demons. The sacred gear, on the other hand, would only be possessed by humans. Under such circumstances, even an ordinary human who obtained the Longinus would have a chance to destroy the gods and demon kings, let alone an existence that had the ability to kill gods. Just like what Leah said. Noah's current existence was like a joke. At this time, another voice rang in Noah's heart. Really, even I feel like your existence is like a joke. Suddenly hearing this voice, Noah almost jumped in fright. However, after regaining his senses, Noah's expression remained unchanged, but he was surprised in his heart. Drake? Are you awake? The reason for this question was entirely because the consciousness that resided in Noah's soul was usually in a muddled state of deep sleep. Bo was like that, among other things. After all, although he was Noah's clone, in fact, even his soul had been devoured by Noah's soul, leaving only a consciousness that resided in Noah's soul. Once Noah provided magic, the consciousness that resided in Noah's soul would awaken, construct its own body with magic, and descend into the outside world to listen to the orders of Noah, the host that provided life. Therefore, rather than saying that the relationship between Noah and Bo was a main body and a clone, it was better to say that it was a simple beast tamer and a servant. However, without Noah, the beast tamer, to provide magic, Bo, as a servant, would not have a body, let alone a soul. Only a pure consciousness resided in Noah's soul. It was precisely because even his soul had been devoured by Noah's soul that Bo, who only had a consciousness left, could only fall into a state of deep sleep. He would only wake up when Noah called or under special circumstances. For example, when Drake, as the second pure consciousness, resided in Noah's soul, it stimulated the sleeping Bo, causing Bo to wake up. Therefore, without Noah's permission or such a special situation, as a consciousness that was purely residing in Noah's soul, Drake shouldn't be able to stay in a conscious state during normal times. This should also be considered a special circumstance, right? In Noah's heart, Drake's voice continued to sound. Perhaps it's because you used the power that originally belonged to me. Aside from being summoned by you, when you used the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, I could also sense something in your soul and wake up. In other words, Drake would only wake up when Noah used the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear? Don't worry about me. Other than being summoned by you, I will only wake up when you use the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. When you cancel the materialization of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, I will fall into a deep sleep again. Hearing this, Noah nodded in his heart and immediately cancelled the materialization of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. He smiled at Riaz, who was opposite him. The God Slayer, Campione, using the God Slayer, Longinus, sounds very suitable, doesn't it? It's more than suitable. I don't even know what words to use to describe it. Riaz continued to smile bitterly. I think that the current you is definitely the strongest Red Dragon Emperor in all of history, and there will be no one to surpass you in the future, right? Hearing this, Noah raised an eyebrow. The strongest Red Dragon Emperor in history? Perhaps so. After all, even Varley, who had the Demon King's bloodline, was called the strongest White Dragon Emperor in history by a Sashal, let alone Noah, who was a God Slayer. Since you have become the Red Dragon Emperor, then the White Dragon Emperor should have his eyes on you again, right? Riaz seemed to have thought of Varley and asked Noah. What are you going to do? Wally? Noah narrowed his eyes, and then he suddenly changed the topic. Oh right, when will the meeting between the three factions be held? The meeting between the three factions? Riaz was stunned for a moment before she answered truthfully. It will be held tomorrow. As for the location, it will be in Chariot King Academy. It's in Chariot King Academy? Noah was surprised. Why did you choose this place? The reason is simple. As the Demon King's sister and the center of Korkabor's incident, Kana and I are both here. Even the governor of the fallen angels, Asashel, is here. So, we decided to hold the meeting here, Riaz said with a slight headache. To be honest, I'm a little worried myself. Whatever Riaz was worried about, someone immediately said it for her. Hey. Irina raised her hand in trepidation. What if the three factions break down during the meeting and start fighting here? Everyone was silent. This was the problem that everyone was worried about. Just how confident are you in the relationship between the three major forces? While saying this, Noah recalled Asa Shur's words. Don't worry, I'll be there for the meeting tomorrow. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Teacher, you'll be there too? That's right, Asashel asked me to do it. Maybe it's because he doesn't want the three factions to fight after the talks break down. That's why he needs me to be there, right? Noah stood up and stretched. So, don't worry, I'll do it if necessary. This was what they needed to worry about the most. Chapter 645. Since Noah mentioned the meeting between the three factions, Leah began to explain to her family members what needed to be done in the meeting undoubtedly, to prevent anyone from making mistakes. Especially Shiba Yudo, who had been staying by Huda Kazunari's side all this while to protect and observe Huda Kazunari. He did not participate in Korkabor's incident, and there were many things that he did not know. Therefore, the necessary explanations were necessary. As Leah explained to Shiba Yudo about the meeting tomorrow, Noah, who was about to leave, was stopped by Genova. Teacher, do you have anything to do next? I'm fine. Noah tilted his head. What? Do you have something to say? Yes, I have a very important matter to discuss with you, Genova said in a serious tone. So, can you come with me first? What is it? Is there anything interesting? Beside them, Irina, who was bored by Leah's explanation, quickly joined them. Then count me in too. Does Irina want it too? Genova was obviously stunned. After a moment of serious consideration, he nodded. Just like me, Irina was banished by the church. That's fine, I'll count Irina in. Yay! Irina cheered. Well then, teacher. Genova turned around. Please come with me. Then, Genova walked out of the room, and Irina quickly followed him. Seeing this, Noah followed curiously. What was it that could make Genova so serious? In the old school building, other than the supernatural research department, there were many other rooms and classrooms. With Genova leading the way, Noah and Irina came to one of the empty classrooms. Then Genova turned to face Noah and spoke with a serious expression on his face. I say, teacher, do you want to have a child with me? Noah's expression froze when he realized what Genova was planning to do with him. What did Genova say just now? If he did not hear wrongly, he seemed to want to invite Noah to have a child with him. Have a child, right? Am I right? Surely he didn't hear wrongly. Huh? Elena, who came in with him, was also stunned. When she came to her senses, she let out a cry of surprise. Huh? Ah. However, when Irina screamed, Genova quickly covered her mouth with his hand. Irina, don't be so loud. You'll be discovered. Woo 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 woo. Elena, on the other hand, shook her head with all her might and struggled in a flurry. Her pretty face was completely red. The corner of Noah's mouth twitched when he saw Genova revealing such a serious expression and saying such words. Do you know what you're saying? What? Was it difficult to understand? Then I'll start from the beginning. Genova nodded and spoke to Noah with a serious expression that did not look like he said such unscrupulous words. I grew up in the headquarters of the church because I was born with the talent to use the holy sword. Therefore, since I was young, the people in the church have been teaching me how to use the sword and diligently learning combat skills for God and religion. When I was young, I was also instilled with the thought that I must fight for God. My dreams and goals were all related to God and faith. I became a sword saint purely for God and preached for Vatican City. I deeply believed in all of this and never doubted it. Genova looked straight into Noah's eyes. But now, God is dead. My faith has nowhere to go and even turned into a demon. It can be said that I have completely lost my goals and dreams. I don't even know the meaning of my life anymore. Hearing Genova's words, Irina calmed down and fell into silence. She seemed to empathize with Genova. I know that Aisha was in the same situation as you. After being expelled by the church, she was very confused. She didn't even know where I came from and directly sought refuge with me. It was as if she had lost the meaning of her life. Noah took a deep breath and smiled bitterly. But what does that have to do with you wanting to have children? Of course it has something to do with it, Genova said without hesitation. At first, I was still confused about what I should do, but when I was drunk at teacher's house and almost had sex, I understood. Genova said as Noah and Irina stared blankly at him. When I was still serving God, I gave up my consciousness as a woman. For my faith, for God, I offered my body, my soul, and my everything to God. But now, I'm a demon. I have the right to take back what I gave up and live as a woman. So, my new goal and new dream is to have children. Noah didn't know how to react to all of this. Therefore, Noah could only spit out these words with a stiff face. Then why did you choose me to be the father of your child? Isn't that obvious? Genova had a strange look on his face. Since I'm going to have a child, of course I want it to be a strong and healthy child. You're the unprecedented Godslayer, and the legendary Red Dragon Emperor. As the child's father, you're the most suitable, aren't you? While saying this, Genova looked at Irina. Irina, you also want a strong and healthy child, right? You're asking me? Irina was a little confused. If I'm going to have a child, of course I want the child to be strong and healthy, but, see, even Irina thinks so, right? Genova seemed to be emboldened as he raised his head and puffed out his chest. Then, Elena, come and have a child with me. Huh? Elena exclaimed once again. I want one too. Isn't that obvious? Genova patted Irina's shoulder. Just like me, Irina once swore to dedicate everything to the Lord. Now, she has reincarnated into a demon just like me. Then, you should also be like me. Release everything of the woman you once abandoned and fulfill the responsibilities of a woman, right? Is that so? The naive Irina was even more confused. I see. I also have to fulfill my responsibilities as a woman, don't agree? Noah finally couldn't help but say. Don't you know how much your thoughts are worth ridiculing? Unfortunately, Noah's words were automatically ignored by Genova. No matter what, it's indeed a pity that we didn't manage to have a child the last time. So, let's take this opportunity to make a child. Genova didn't know how shameless his words were. He reached out and hugged Noah. It was believed that Genova would be able to hug Noah completely soon. This made Noah's brain go blank. Irina. However, at this moment, Genova seemed to have thought of something. He turned around and faced the confused Irina. You too. Then, without giving Irina a chance to react, Genova walked towards Irina as though he was going to do something to her. Wait. Irina hurriedly began to resist. However, Genova forcefully pushed the flustered Irina towards Noah. Noah instinctively reached out and pulled Irina into his arms. Am I finally going to welcome this moment too? Irina, who was still in a mess, closed her eyes. Her beautiful face was filled with motherly love. Ah, Lord, what should I do? Come on. Genova appeared behind Noah and hugged him. You can do whatever you want. Being squeezed by a girl from the front and back, Noah felt that his heart was really breaking down bit by bit. This level of feeling was naturally incomparable to the last time when Lyath and the other 7 girls pounced on him. However, no matter which time it was, and how many people there were, that wasn't the main problem. The main problem was that Noah really couldn't get used to it, could he? Therefore, Noah was on the verge of tears. Can you not do this every time? At this moment, the classroom door opened. Outside, Label's pretty face was red as she yelled. Don't even think about monopolizing Lord Noah. As soon as she said that, Label also pounced on him. Instantly, the classroom became a mess. Chapter 646. Because of Label's interference, Noah naturally did not manage to accomplish anything in the end. After that, Noah found out that Label had found Noah, who was abducted, into the classroom of the old school building, and even dragged Irina along. It was all because Label had seen Noah leave the paranormal research department and secretly followed him. It was not just this time. Noah had already discovered many times that ever since Label became Leah's dependent and came to the human world, the little girl would often secretly follow him behind like a stalker. In any case, thanks to Label, Genova and Irina's plan to have a child was completely ruined. However, after that, Genova also said this to Noah with a serious face. It's really regrettable that we were interrupted this time. I'll look for you next time when I have the chance, teacher. Of course, I'll bring Irina along. If possible, I'd like to bring Aisha too. After all, we're all believers who have dedicated our lives to the Lord. Aisha must be very lost right now, and I need to bring Aisha and Irina together to find the true joy of being a woman. When the time comes, I'll leave it to you, teacher. After saying this, Genova gradually left with a determined expression, leaving Noah dumbfounded. This girl was actually planning to bring her family to Noah to have a child together? Did this mean that Noah had profited? Or that the church's trio had profited? In any case, that day, Noah truly understood how terrifying Genova was. It was estimated that in the following period of time, Noah would have to work hard to protect his chastity. After all, no matter what, Noah would not really push Aisha, Genova, and Irina away just because of Genova's words. At least he had to be mentally prepared, right? Just like that, Noah welcomed the second day. Today was the day of the meeting between the 3 major factions. At the moment, the Jamonli's dependents led by Leah had already begun their preparations and met up with city's dependents led by Tsang Na to discuss the arrangements for the meeting. Due to the meeting between the 3 major factions, the Colt King Academy had a special day off today. Of course, the students did not know that the reason for the holiday was because the 3 major factions wanted to have a meeting here. As the true master of the Colt King Academy, Leah had arranged for the school to have a day off today. Under such circumstances, Noah closed his eyes in the empty space in front of the old school building. In his mind, the stone plate with 10 patterns on its outlines suddenly turned and pointed at the Dragon Emperor's clone. Clang! A scarlet gauntlet on Noah's right hand. Boost! Immediately after, the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear made a sound, and the jade on the back of his hand flashed, allowing power to flow into Noah's body. This way, the Dragon Emperor's clone, the Dragon Emperor's clones, would double 10 seconds later, boost. With another sound, Noah's power doubled again. The power from the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear surged all over Noah's body. After continuously strengthening himself for about 5 times, Noah felt that his body had become heavier. This was a sign that the multiplied power was gradually becoming a burden. At that moment, Noah opened his eyes and raised the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. Explosion, release. In the next instant, a brand new voice reverberated from the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, causing the crimson-red gauntlet to shine with resplendent lines. This sound meant to stop the multiplied power. Simply put, it was a kind of braking device. When this device was activated, Noah's Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear would stop increasing his strength, allowing Noah to fight for a period of time with his strength increased. And the length of this period of time would depend on the actions taken during this period. The more active Noah was and the more he attacked, the shorter the period of time it would be maintained. Also, if Noah was in a state of exhaustion, the period of time it could be used would also be shortened. Therefore, using this was one of the tricks of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. As for not activating this device, Noah's power would naturally increase during the multiplied period. However, compared to activating this device, stopping the multiplied power and maintaining the increased power, the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear's power would be more unstable. If this device was not activated and Noah casually moved, there would be a risk of the multiplied power being reset and returning to its original state. Therefore, stopping the multiplied power before using this ability was still quite reliable. Therefore, the extraordinary power began to run wildly in Noah's body. If Noah's original power was compared to 1, then after the first multiplied power, Noah's power would become 2. After the second multiplied power, the 2 power would become 4. After the third multiplied power, it would become 8. So on, the fourth multiplied power would be 16, and the fifth multiplied power would be 32. This allowed Noah's power to increase to 32 times its original power. And when Noah's Dragon Emperor avatar was used, Noah could obtain power comparable to a giant dragon. In other words, now, the power flowing in Noah's body was 32 times that of a giant dragon's power. Noah, who clearly knew how powerful he was now, could not help but murmur. If I could still use the balance breaker, in that case, the Dragon Emperor avatar would become the third most powerful among Noah's 10 avatars. I just don't know if my sacred gear can reach the balance breaker level. This was the only thing Noah was worried about. It was out of the control of the system, and when it entered Noah's body, it was completely transformed into pure energy. The power of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear was now only in the form of a sacred gear, so it should be considered as an ability of the Dragon Emperor incarnation. Therefore, strictly speaking, Noah's Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear was no longer a proper sacred gear. I hope it works. Just as Noah was about to continue exploring the boosted gear's ability, the door of the old schoolhouse opened, and Lias led a group of family members out of the old schoolhouse. Noah, who exchanged glances with Lias, immediately understood and cancelled the use of the Dragon Emperor avatar. Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear automatically disappeared when the Dragon Emperor avatar was cancelled. Then, Noah joined Liatha's group and stood side by side with her. Together, they walked toward the schoolhouse with a group of Zamonli's family members. The entire Colt King Academy was covered by a thick layer of crystal-like barrier. Within the barrier, around the Colt King Academy, small teams formed by the three major factions demons, angels, and fallen were patrolling everywhere, filling the entire school with a solemn atmosphere. Walking in a corridor of the schoolhouse, Lias was explaining to Noah. This time, the meeting will be held in the schoolhouse's conference room. The representatives of the three factions will be present. The demons will be represented by the great demon King Lucifer, the angels will be represented by the highest-ranking Michael, and the fallen will be represented by the viceroy, Athaziel. Kangna, my family, and I will be attending the meeting. Also, you and the White Dragon Emperor's Wali will also be attending the meeting. Lucifer, Michael, and Athaziel. Noah sighed. In other words, the three most powerful rulers of the three factions are here? Yes. Lias nodded heavily. Originally, Lady Seraphil, who is also the current Leviathan and Kangna's elder sister, who is in charge of diplomacy, should be present as well. However, that lady is in an emotional state because Korkabor kidnapped Kangna and planned to kill her. If she were to come, I'm afraid that things will not end well. With such ominous words, the group finally arrived at the conference room. Lias pushed the door open and exposed the situation inside. Chapter 647. What appeared in front of Noah and the others was a vast conference room. There was a table in the conference room, and it looked quite luxurious. There were only 3 seats next to it, and one could tell at a glance who they were for. And on the seats, 3 people had already sat down. The first was naturally the representative of the demons, the demon king Lucifer, Sazax, who had the same bright red hair as Lias. Then, the fallen angel governor, Asashel, who had changed out of his previous kimono and put on a rather decent robe. The last one was someone Noah had never seen before. It was a very handsome man, even more handsome than Kiba Yudo. He had a dignified appearance, a kind face, and a halo floating above his head. If the characteristics of the demons were their bat-like wings, and the fallen angels' characteristics were their pitch-black wings, then the halo floating above their heads was one of the characteristics of the angels. Then, there was no need to doubt who this person who sat on the same level as the demon king and the fallen angel governor was. The commander of the heavens, the leader of the angels, and the most powerful right-hand man of the God of the Bible, Michael. Like a satchel, he had the highest position, 6 pairs of 12 wings, and was the superior of all the angels. He was also the angel with the highest position in the entire heavens. And in addition to the 3 supreme leaders of the 3 major forces, Sazax, Asashel, and Michael, there were several other people present. One was Gulifia, who was dressed as a maid and served beside Sazax. Another was Kana, who stood in the corner and entered as an observer, only bringing along Shinra and Juhaim. And another was Wally, who also stood in the corner but was the closest to Asashel. He had been staring at Noah with a smile on his face that came from the bottom of his heart. The scene was silent. An extremely solemn atmosphere filled the entire conference room. Perhaps feeling nervous, Noah felt the corner of his clothes being tightly grabbed by Isha. Not only Isha, but even Genova and Irina had heavy expressions on their faces. They glanced in Michael's direction from time to time, and then turned their heads away. As believers who once believed in God, Aisha, Genova, and Irina felt very unnatural when facing the highest leader of the angels, the highest representative of heaven, and the right-hand man of the God of the Bible, right? However, Michael did not mind Aisha, Genova, and Irina's unnatural behavior. After giving the 3 girls a kind smile, he turned to Noah. "I've wanted to meet you for a long time. You must be the legendary God Slayer, right?" "Let me introduce you," Sazik said to Noah. "This is Noah Dole. He seems to be attending our meeting as an observer. He was the one who crushed Kokbor's ambitions during the previous attack. I've heard about this matter." Michael lowered his head towards Noah. "Thank you again." "You don't have to thank me." Noah took a deep look at Michael and smiled indifferently. "As a reward, the Holy Sword of Destruction and Holy Sword of Mimicry belong to me. The other 3 holy swords taken by Kokbor, including the Holy Sword of Skyflash, have been returned to the church through Leah's hands. I remember I've said this before. In order to take back the stolen holy swords from Kokbor, the church sent Genova and Irina over in an attempt to take back the holy swords that had fallen into the hands of the fallen angels. After that, Genova and Irina were expelled from the church because they knew that God was dead. The Holy Sword of Destruction and Holy Sword of Mimicry were naturally still in the hands of these 2 girls. Therefore, using the excuse of crushing Kokbor's ambitions as an excuse, Noah gave Leah the Holy Sword of Skyflash that he obtained from Freed and the other 2 holy swords that Genova and Irina found after the incident, and asked Leah to convey Noah's thoughts. Therefore, the Holy Sword of Destruction and Holy Sword of Mimicry continued to stay in the hands of Genova and Irina, and did not cause the church to send people to take them back. As a human who did not belong to any faction, Noah had the right to make such a request. Even so, please allow me to express my gratitude to you. Michael's smile was still as peaceful as ever. It's all thanks to you that things didn't get to the worst point. No. Didn't we find a way to clean up the mess? Asashel said shamelessly. I've even sent the White Dragon Emperor out on my side. Asashel's words made the atmosphere in the meeting room drop to the freezing point once again. Doesn't this man know that the main purpose of today's 3-party meeting is to hold the fallen angels accountable? I've already said before that Kokbor's actions were entirely his own initiative, and he can't represent the fallen angels. Asashel spread his hands helplessly. Now, we've already given Kokbor the punishment he deserves, so can we not continue talking about such meaningless matters? Meaningless matters? Sazik asked. Does the governor think that the fallen angels don't need to bear any responsibility for Kokbor's actions at all? Well, no matter what, it's our people who caused the mess. Naturally, I won't shirk all responsibility. Asashel waved his hand impatiently. If you're still worried, why don't we just conclude a peace treaty here? That one sentence made everyone present, except Noah, stand up in surprise. Noah did not find it strange at all because he already knew that Asashel had such a plan in advance. However, for the others, it was really surprising that the governor of the fallen angels, Asashel, who was simply the leader of the bad guys, would actually make such a suggestion. Besides, was it peace? From ancient times until now, the three forces had been in a constant war. Even now, when they were in a state of truce, small-scale conflicts were still going on. They had even fought until the gods and demon kings were all dead, and the three forces had fallen to the point where they could only rely on humans to reproduce. Now that peace was suddenly proposed, and it was even proposed by the bad guy leader of the fallen angels, who wouldn't be surprised? However, after the surprise, Sazix and Michael looked at each other and smiled. It's really surprising. Michael expressed his thoughts directly. Although His Highness Sazix and I originally planned to propose a peace treaty to the fallen angels, we didn't expect you to propose it first. However, if this situation continues, there's really no need for it, Sazix said with a sigh. The gods and demon kings are already dead, and our three forces have reached a point where we can no longer continue to suffer losses because of the war. In order to allow the race to continue, the war should not break out again. That's right. Asashel's expression became serious. If a war breaks out again, this time, the three forces will definitely perish together. At this point, Asashel suddenly smiled and looked in Noah's direction. Therefore, I also invited the famous Godslayer to attend this meeting. The purpose is to let him witness the peace treaty between our three forces. If someone deliberately breaks the treaty in the future, then I hope that everyone will first consider whether they can deal with the crusade of the Godslayer. The whole place suddenly fell silent. Sazix and Michael both looked at Noah and then smiled bitterly at the same time. Since we have the Godslayer as a witness, then we can rest assured. At this moment, Varley suddenly spoke. Before that, can I ask the Godslayer over there a question? Hearing Varley's words, everyone turned to look in Noah's direction. Noah frowned. It was because Wally's eyes were filled with an unprecedented battle intent and excitement that couldn't be matched even in the past. Then, Varley said this sentence. Noah Dole, you have become the new, Red Dragon Emperor, right? This time, everyone, including Sazix, Asashel, and Michael, looked at Noah in surprise. Not to mention the others, even Noah himself was a little surprised. This Varley already knew that Noah had become the host of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. It seemed that the relationship between the Red Dragon Emperor and the White Dragon Emperor was deeper than Noah imagined. Chapter 648. Now, the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear had completely turned into pure power and was absorbed by Noah. That was to say, unlike other sacred gear holders, Noah did not have any sacred gear in his body. The Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear was only one of the Dragon Emperor's abilities. When Noah used the power of the Dragon Emperor, it was only instantiated in the form of sacred gear. If Noah did not instantiate the sacred gear, then he would not be considered a sacred gear holder at all. No one would be able to discover the existence of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. From the beginning to the end, Noah only had the authority of the 10 incarnations. Whether it was the power of Welslana, Mecher, or Drag, it was integrated into Noah's body. After being absorbed by Noah's overbearing physique, it was considered Noah's own power. Therefore, without using the authority of the 10 incarnations, coupled with the restriction ability that was previously integrated into the authority and the additional concealment effect, no one would be able to detect Noah's power. However, Wally was aware of it. Undoubtedly, until yesterday, this matter was only known by Lyath and her family, wasn't it? Seeing Noah's somewhat surprised expression, Varley seemed to have gotten the answer, and his expression became more excited and happy. I'm also very surprised. As the White Dragon Emperor, I didn't notice the power of the Red Dragon Emperor, but the white dragon in my body still felt the aura of the red dragon on you. That should be the aura left behind when you used the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, right? Hearing this, Noah once again lamented the deep relationship between the Red Dragon Emperor and the White Dragon Emperor, and nodded without hiding anything. You're right. The Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear that was lodged in Hito Issei's body has been taken out by me. Now, the power of the Red Dragon Emperor is mine. After being acknowledged by Noah, everyone present had their own reactions. Tsang turned his head and looked at Lyath. After getting a nod from Lyath, he finally believed this fact. Sazax and Michael looked at each other in dismay. Only Athasiel, who was obviously smiling bitterly. Campioni and Longinus? Should I say this is a joke? Or should a person who can kill a god be equipped with a weapon that can kill a god? As an expert who specialized in the study of sacred gear, no one understood what it meant better than Athasiel. As a Red Dragon Emperor as well as a God Slayer? Varley laughed, and his laughter was unusually happy. Originally, because the ordinary human named Hito Issei was the Red Dragon Emperor, I was very disappointed. Now, I'm very satisfied, extremely satisfied. As he said this, Varley stared at Noah with a burning gaze. You're probably the strongest Red Dragon Emperor in history, aren't you? Do you want to directly determine the winner of the fateful duel between the Red Dragon and the White Dragon? At the scene, Sazax, Michael, Lyath, and the others all frowned. Varley, Athasiel said directly. Undoubtedly, you didn't care about the fateful duel between the Red Dragon Emperor and the White Dragon Emperor in the past, did you? Because, for me, as long as it's a powerhouse, even if it's not the Red Dragon Emperor, it doesn't matter to me. I'll go and find a winner. Varley made a statement that only a typical battle maniac would say. So, if the Red Dragon Emperor is a powerhouse that makes my blood boil, then of course it makes me excited, right? Varley. Athasiel's voice began to become serious, and he looked directly at Varley. Look at the situation clearly. Do you think we'll let the Red Dragon Emperor and the White Dragon Emperor duel here at this time? Is that so? You don't agree? Varley closed his eyes slightly, and then suddenly opened them. Then there's no other way. Let's end this meeting early. As soon as he finished speaking, the White Dragon Emperor's light wings, dividing, flashed behind Varley's back. Under the gaze of everyone present, the light wings behind Varley flapped, and he flew in the direction of the window. Bang! In the crisp sound, Varley directly crashed through the window of the meeting room and soared into the sky. Extremely dense mana burst out of his body as he came to a stop in midair. Balance breaker. A surge of light suddenly enveloped Varley's entire body. When the light dissipated, Varley's entire body was covered in thick, pure white full-body armor. Sazax, Michael, Lyath, Tsang, and the others who finally reacted were all shocked. What is he trying to do? In the end, the ominous premonition still came true. Athasiel's face also darkened. He looked up and stared at Varley, who was hovering in midair, and said in a low voice. Varley, what are you trying to do? Nothing, Athasiel. Varley's voice came from under the helmet. Just a chaotic performance for all of you who are about to usher in peace. As soon as he said that, the mana that rose from Varley's body gathered into a huge magic circle in midair. And in the magic circle, people covered in black robes slowly appeared, and they filled the entire sky of the Colt King Academy. What's wrong? What happened? Intruders? The demons, angels, and fallen angels patrolling Chariot King Academy all flew over when they noticed the commotion. But before that, Wally made his move. Buzz! The rich mana turned into bright rays of light. With Varley as the center, they were like lasers that pierced through space and shot in all directions. Poochie 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 poochie. The sound of laser beams piercing through human bodies could be heard all around. It was the sound of the surrounding demons, angels, and fallen angels being pierced by the magic lasers. Ah! Screams resounded through the sky. Immediately afterward, the black-robed men that appeared from the magic formation all flew around and shot magic power beams at the demons, angels, and fallen angels whose formation had been broken by Wally's attack, catching the people of the three forces off guard. In an instant, the demons, angels, and fallen angels suffered heavy losses. With Sazax, Athasher, and Michael taking the lead, Liath, Canna, and their followers' faces changed abruptly. Noah, the only one who could remain calm, looked at Wally, who was hovering high in the air. He muttered to himself as he recalled what Athashel said in the cafeteria. "Sure enough, Wally betrayed us. I'm sorry, Athasher." Wally's voice echoed in the air. "What I want is to be able to fight without restraint with the strong. So, Calamity Mass is more suitable for me." Calamity Mass? They had never heard of such a noun, which made everyone frown. Athasher, on the other hand, curled his lips and smiled. Not long ago, our deputy governor of the fallen angels had his eyes on a suspicious group. They gathered the dangerous elements of the three major forces with the purpose of destruction and chaos. In short, a group of terrorists who are not used to world peace. That's Calamity Mass, right? As expected of you. You know everything like the back of your hand. You even discovered the existence of Calamity Mass. You have long expected that I would betray you, right? Wally opened his hand. Then, with your personality, you should have made some preparations in advance. What did you do in response to my betrayal? As soon as Wally finished speaking, another voice answered Wally's question. Let me answer this question for you. As soon as the voice fell. I used these words to provoke the gods in the sky, exercise this magic power, chant this spell, and make everything in the world bow and kneel. A formless wave spread out along with the chanting of the spirit of words. Chapter 649. I will use these words to provoke the gods in the heavens. Exercise this magic power, chant this incantation, and make everything in the world bow and kneel. When the words that could provoke the gods in the heavens reverberated in the space, an invisible wave formed by magic power spread out like ripples, covering the entire Horse King Academy. At this moment, a trace of warning emerged in Wally's heart, forcing him to subconsciously burn the mana in his body and cover his entire body. Immediately after, a sound that heavily struck the hearts of everyone present shook. Come down. In an instant, the invisible fluctuations that spread out shrouded the black-robed men who were attacking the surrounding demons, angels, and fallen angels like tarantulas. Including Wally. Wally only felt that his body suddenly became incomparably heavy, and he couldn't help but sink down fiercely. But fortunately, Wally mobilized the magic power in his body and filled it all over his body, allowing Wally to bear the heavy burden. His body suddenly shook, and the invisible wave that shrouded his body dissipated. However, the black-robed people didn't have the ability to do so. Bang, 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 bang. In a series of muffled sounds, the black-robed people all seemed to be pulled down from mid-air, and one after another heavily smashed onto the ground, stirring up bursts of smoke and waves of screams. These black-robed people weren't demons, angels, or fallen angels, but a group of mages. Even if they could use magic, mages were still humans in terms of their bodies. So, after falling from such a high altitude, the group of mages were all lying on the ground wailing, and some even spat out blood wildly, unable to get up again. In other words, the only one who survived was Wally. Sure enough, there's no way to make the legendary White Dragon Emperor bow down just by relying on the words of the priest incarnation. Saying such a sentence, Noah had unknowingly walked out of the conference room and came to the first floor of the school building. He slowly walked out of the door and looked at Wally. Now, do you know what a satchel has prepared for your betrayal? Hearing this, Wally, whose whole body was burning with magic, smiled. If that so-called preparation is for you to stop me, then I'm more than happy to do so. It's just that, compared to a satchel, Wally, the terrorist group you joined doesn't seem to have a good brain. Noah said as he looked around at the mages lying on the ground, wailing in pain. These mages should all have the power to rival mid-level demons, but we have the Demon King, the Archangel, and the Governor of the Fallen Angels. Don't tell me that the so-called group of disasters thinks that as long as you and these mages are here, they can take down the leaders of the three forces? Even I don't think I can do it alone. Wally ignored all the other mages and raised his hand. Therefore, we have also prepared opponents for you. After saying that, the huge magic array in the air above Varley flashed with a dazzling light that was even more intense than before. There, 3 figures appeared and slowly descended from the sky, stopping beside Varley. That's, seeing the 3 people, Sazax and Gulifia, who were still in the meeting room of the school dormitory, narrowed their eyes. Even Liath and Canna were shocked. Seeing this, Noah frowned. It seemed that these 3 people's origins were not ordinary. No, it was not just their origins. Noah also felt a very powerful aura from these 3 people. Almost all of them were not inferior to the highest level demons. Under such circumstances, a woman in a revealing outfit spoke up. "Hey, Wally, that's the rumored God-slayer, right?" "Oh." A man with a cold face looked at Noah. "He's the God-slayer? He claims to be able to kill gods." The remaining man who looked like a warrior also spoke. "Wally, you don't really believe it, do you?" "It's up to me to judge whether I should believe it or not." Wally's voice was flat as if the people around him were just background characters. "You just need to do what you want to do." Hearing this, the woman in revealing clothes smiled viciously. "I am the real Demon King, the descendant of Leviathan Cadelia Leviathan." The man in the plush coat with a cold face spoke next. "I am the real Demon King, the descendant of Beelzebub Karuba Beelzebub." Following closely behind, the warrior-like man also made a loud declaration. "I am the real Demon King, the descendant of Asmodeus Chryslay Asmodeus." Finally, Wally's emotionless voice rang out. "I am the real Demon King, the descendant of Lucifer Wally Lucifer." The 4 descendants of the old Demon King stood side by side in the air, their bodies burning with terrifying magical power. "Come. It's time to bring chaos and destruction to this world." As soon as the words were spoken, Cadelia, Sharuba, and Cruzelii immediately crouched down and shot toward the school dormitory as they spoke in unison. "Despicable fake Demon King, accept the punishment of the real Demon King." Seeing the 3 descendants of the old Demon King charging toward them, Liaz, Tsang Na, and the others' faces tensed up. On the other hand, Sazax, Asashel, and Michael calmly reached out with their hands. In their hands, rich energy waves slowly took effect. Boom! A shining barrier covered the entire school dormitory. Cadelia, Karuba, and Chryslay's bodies burned with surging magical power as they crashed into it. Boom! A deafening sound and an indescribable tremor came from the school dormitory. However, Noah merely took a glance in that direction and stopped observing them. There was no other reason. Noah did not think that the descendants of the Demon King could do anything to the real Demon King, the leader of the angels, and the governor of the fallen angels. So, ignoring the commotion over there, Noah looked straight at the only one left, Wally. The descendants of the 4 old Demon Kings, the other 3 have gone to attack the leaders of the 3 forces. They should be thinking of seizing power, a coup, or even changing the world. Aren't you coming with them? Didn't I say so? Wally spat out. I'm only interested in fighting the strong. As Wally's last word fell, his figure disappeared like a ghost. Whoosh! Noah could clearly see a white meteor-like trajectory suddenly appear in the air. It swept through the air at an extremely fast speed and shot towards him. At that moment, Noah cancelled his priest form and used Dragon Emperor instead. All evildoers, be afraid of my power. Now I will have the majesty of 10 mountains, the power of 100 rivers, and the strength of 1,000 dragons. The majestic me will raise the ferocious power of dragon-slaying dash. At this moment, terrifying magic power gushed out of Noah's body unreservedly, making him seem as if he was bathed in a wave of air, causing the surrounding space to emit a crackling sound. As a god slayer, the instinct of fighting had been completely integrated into Noah's body. Therefore, there was no need for any preparation time. Facing Wally's head-on challenge, Noah's body automatically adjusted to the most perfect combat state, filling Noah's body with power. In an instant, the power that could rival a dragon flowed into Noah's body, and Noah's senses also instantly obtained a divine skill state that far exceeded the wild instinct and intuition. Noah clenched his right fist and shook his arm. Bringing about an unusually powerful force, he blasted it toward the space in front of him without any fancy moves. Whoosh! Just as Noah's right fist blasted into the space in front of him, as if it was calculated, a white trajectory cut through the sky and stopped there, revealing Wally's figure. Immediately, Wally also raised a hand covered in armor and slapped Noah's right fist as fast as lightning. Bang! A terrifying ripple of wind suddenly burst out, causing cracks to appear on the ground and setting off a powerful wind wave. Some of the gravel in the open space were directly shaken into powder. Chapter 650. Peng Dash. The powerful shockwave spread out from the open space in front of the Full King Academy, digging up the soil and stones on the ground, and mercilessly landing on the barrier that covered the entire Full King Academy. Peng 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 Dash. Under the powerful shockwave, the barrier that separated the Full King Academy from the outside world trembled slightly, and then withstood the shocking shockwave, withstanding all the impact. The barrier that covered the Full King Academy was jointly opened by the demons, angels, and fallen angels. Therefore, this level of impact was still bearable. If it wasn't for this barrier, the environment around the Full King Academy would have been completely changed today. Humph. In the midst of the shockwave, Wally, who was covered in pure white armor, let out a muffled groan. The light wings on his back flapped, and his figure quickly retreated. Peng Dash. At the same time, the armor on Wally's right hand directly exploded, and the skin on it cracked open, and blood seeped out. In the blink of an eye, Wally's hand was dyed red. Even Wally couldn't help but change his expression. He actually shattered the armor with one hit? Just when Varley was surprised by this, the dividing wings of the White Dragon Emperor began to flicker behind Varley, and a voice drilled into Varley's ears. Wally, be careful. The Red Dragon Emperor should have the Dragon Kill ability that can cause great damage to dragons. If you're not careful, you won't be able to avoid serious injuries. Wally's expression calmed down, and with a flash of light in his hand, he was once again covered in pure white armor. Then try to use magic power to attack. Wally raised his hand, and a dense light appeared on his hand. It turned into a bolt of lightning, and violently shot towards Noah in front of him. However, before that, Noah relied on his senses that far surpassed his wild instincts and intuition, and as if he could predict the future, he tapped the tip of his foot and quickly retreated. Peng Dash. The magic power bolt landed where Noah was a second ago, and the ground there exploded. Wally's attack missed, but he still raised both his hands. Dense magic power surged in his palms, and turned into balls of lightning. With a flash of light, they constantly flew out, and flashed towards Noah from all directions. Facing the overwhelming magic power bolts, Noah narrowed his eyes, and his body tensed up. The magic power in his body instantly skyrocketed. A layer of resplendent crystal-like light screen that looked like scales flashed out from Noah's body. It was densely packed and overlapped with each other. In just a short moment, it had completely covered Noah's body. Boom, 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 boom. Numerous magic power bolts fiercely bombarded the air scales around Noah's body, and as if causing a chain explosion, the dense fire was like a whistling flood, diffusing from Noah's body, and covering Noah in it. However, not long after, Noah, who seemed to be composed of gas, violently retreated from the fire, and was once again exposed to the air. You want to use long-range attacks? Without stopping his body, Noah allowed his body to violently retreat. He looked at Wally, who once again raised his hands in front of him, and the corner of his mouth raised. Although the Dragon Emperor incarnation doesn't have the ability to use long-range attacks, it doesn't mean that I don't have them. After saying that, in front of Noah, a gorgeous magic array rotated, and the outline surged with amazing magic power. With a vibration, it condensed into a huge beam of light, and violently shot out from the center of the magic array. It cut through the air, and rapidly shot towards Wally in the distance like lightning. Magic? Facing the huge beam of light, Wally stretched out his palm, and a flame-like magic power gushed out, causing a blue jade to flash on the armor on Wally's outstretched arm. The next moment, the huge beam of magic power directly fell on Wally's hand. However, before the beam of magic power took effect, the jade in Wally's hand flashed with light, and a voice sounded. Divide, eat. An invisible wave passed from Wally's palm to the huge beam of light, and the huge beam of magic power that fell on Wally's hand suddenly became sluggish. Its volume suddenly decreased by half, and even the magic power contained in it was reduced by half. Wally's White Dragon Emperor's light wings, diving divide, could reduce the power of the target it touched by half. It was not only effective on people, but also on the attack itself. In addition, Wally was still in the balance breaker state, and could use the ability to reduce power by half at any time. As long as Wally was willing, he could use the ability to reduce power by half a dozen times in a short second, and weaken the beam of magic power to the point of self-collapse. Of course, the balance breaker state also had a time limit. In the balance breaker state, the more Wally used the ability to reduce power by half, the shorter the duration of the balance breaker state would be. However, Wally didn't need to worry about this problem at all. Every sacred gear had a balance breaker state. Every balance breaker also had a time limit. However, the stronger the user was, the higher the proficiency of the balance breaker state, and the longer the balance breaker state could be maintained. As a descendant of the Demon King, Wally's magic power was very powerful. Under such circumstances, Wally's balance breaker state could be maintained for a whole month. Even if the continuous use of the ability was reduced by half, the balance breaker state could still be maintained for at least a day, so there was no need to worry about this problem at all. Unfortunately, Wally's opponent was even worse. Boost. At the same time when Wally used the ability to reduce power by half, a voice sounded in the distance. Suddenly, the magic light beam that had been weakened by half suddenly expanded and recovered to its original power. Wally's expression changed, and he suddenly raised his head and looked at the opposite side. There, Noah also stretched out a hand and placed it on the magic circle that was emitting the magic light beam. On Noah's hand, a scarlet ferocious gauntlet appeared there, and the jade on the back of his hand was still flashing. Impressively, it was the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. Boom! In the next moment, the magic light beam directly exploded, setting off a violent wave of fire that shook the surroundings, and also covered Wally's body in it. Looking at the expanding wave of fire, Noah's expression was as calm as ever. It's just a simple attack by processing magic power into a cannonball. Wally, if you pretend to be dead like this, then you're not qualified to be the descendant of one of the 4 demon kings. As soon as Noah's words fell, the spreading wave of fire trembled violently. Immediately, an extremely surging demonic energy slowly radiated from it. It was like a wave that wanted to destroy the sea of fire. It surged in all directions, emitting a surging roar in the surroundings. Of course, the battle has just begun, and I haven't enjoyed enough. As the magic power roared, a voice also spread in the sea of fire. The voice was full of joy and battle intent. Boom! When the voice full of joy and battle intent fell, the sea of fire that swept the space suddenly condensed, and with a loud bang, it directly scattered in all directions. The waves of fire surged and spread out from the center of the self-study garden, bombarding the surrounding enchantment, causing it to become shaky. When the spreading waves of fire came in front of Noah, they were blocked by the light curtain-like air scales and separated to 2 sides. Noah, on the other hand, had already shifted his gaze to the spot where the wave of fire exploded. There, a figure full of magic power flames was suspended in the void, and appeared in front of Noah's eyes. When Wally reappeared, the pure white armor on his body was already covered by a thick layer of light curtain. Obviously, at the critical moment, Wally turned his magic power into a defensive nature, so that he could resist the impact of the magic light beam. Chapter 651. In the scorching sea of fire, Wally floated in the air by relying on the dividing wings of White Dragon Emperor behind him. He raised his head that was covered by a pure white dragon head helmet and stared at the ferocious crimson-red gauntlet on Noah's hand. He let out a joyful laugh. Have you finally used the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear? On the White Dragon Emperor's dividing wings, behind Wally, a faint blue light flashed out, and a sound was heard. It's been a long time, Drake. At the same time as the deep voice sounded, an equally deep voice also came from Noah's boosted gear. It's indeed been a long time, Arubian. I knew you would still come to me. Because Noah used the boosted gear, Drake's consciousness in Noah's soul also awakened. It was because he felt Drake's consciousness awakening that the white dragon named Arubian made a sound. However, when he heard Drake's voice, Arubian suddenly fell silent for a moment, then he said in surprise. It feels like you're different from before, Drake. Is it my illusion? No, I've changed a lot. Drake's voice kept echoing from the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear Jade. But you're the same. You actually chose the descendant of the Demon King as your host. It's really not funny. With his bloodline and talent, he should be able to easily surpass your previous hosts, right? Choosing a host is a function of the system. We can't choose a host ourselves. This time is really a coincidence, but I'm very surprised that I'm a descendant of the Demon King. Arubian's voice was still deep. However, I thought that with Varley as my host, I wouldn't lose to you this time. In the end, isn't your host more cheating than the descendant of the Demon King? Just like what you said, even I am surprised. However, my previous host was just an ordinary human. Who would have thought that he would suddenly become like this? The crimson value on the gauntlet flashed in agreement with Drake's every word. So, I'll tell you the truth, Arubian, let your host run away quickly. You can't win against my partner. Drake said this sentence quite matter-of-factly. Unlike when he first resided in Noah's soul, he didn't know much about Noah. Now, Drake really understood how strong Noah was. Even his existence was so cheating. In addition, Noah hadn't used the rest of his clones yet. When he was in a bad situation, he could summon Drake and even Bo, who was not weaker than Drake. With Varley's current strength, it was impossible to win against Noah. Drake had such confidence. Hearing Drake's voice clearly, Arubian didn't have time to say anything, and Varley suddenly laughed out loud. Whether I can't win or not, you'll know after seeing my full strength. Hearing this, Arubian was a little surprised. Varley, are you going to use that? Varley didn't answer Arubian's words. Instead, he shook the light wings on his back and raised one hand high above his head. Clank. At this moment, all the precious gems on Wally's armor shone with dazzling rainbow-colored radiance, bathing Wally in intense light. At the same time, the dragon power on Varley's body crazily increased. Seeing this, Noah, who had been silent all this while, gradually narrowed his eyes. Varley's aura, impressively, had far exceeded the level of the so-called Demon King, reaching the level of the God Slayer that Noah knew. Under such circumstances, Varley chanted in a deep voice. I awaken just as Varley chanted in a low voice, as if to cater, the gems on Varley's body didn't belong to Varley, and it was full of ominous voices. Are you going to turn into ashes? Has he turned into ashes? It was like a curse, filled with resentment and loathing. Varley didn't care. Under the echo of the voice full of resentment and hatred, he continued to chant an ominous spell. The second sky dragon deprived of everything, the dream is about to end. The illusion is about to begin. The body envies the infinite, the heart seeks dreams, all. That's right, give up everything you have. I, the overbearing white dragon, invite you to enter the limit of stainless. When the last spell fell, a large amount of strong light soared from Varley's body. Juggernaut drive. A violent aura burst out from Wally's body and swept in all directions, extinguishing the sea of fire and scraping away the soil. It was no longer the aura of Varley's magic power, but the aura of a dragon. In the aura, Varley's aura crazily expanded. When it stopped, the fluctuation of power had reached a point where Noah couldn't help but be serious. It was not weaker than the power of veteran god slayers like Warban and Luo Hao. It's a bit troublesome, partner. Draeger's voice also began to become serious. That Varley can use Juggernaut Drive. You have to be careful. If you don't use your full strength, you will die. Noah didn't doubt the authenticity of Draeger's words at all. He looked forward and directly asked. What's Juggernaut Drive? Only people like us, who have magical creatures sealed in the sacred gear, can use an ability that is even more powerful than the balance breaker, Draeg said in a deep voice. Once the Juggernaut Drive is used, the restrictions of the sacred gear can be removed, allowing the holder to have the power of the monster sealed inside the sacred gear before it died. In other words, Wally now has the power of a sky dragon at his peak, which is even more powerful than the gods and demon kings. Even if it's you, if you don't deal with it seriously, you will definitely die. Hearing this, Noah couldn't help but be speechless. A sky dragon at his peak could be ranked in the top 10 of this world. In the face of such power, it was no wonder that Noah felt that Varley had reached the strength of Warban and Luo Hao. There's actually such a level of power? That's not a power that can be used casually. It's very risky, Draeger said. In this state, the holder of the sacred gear is very likely to be unable to control his mind, causing him to go berserk and even have his life sucked away. It will only stop when the host dies. There's no doubt that it's a cursed power. Just as Draeger finished speaking, Varley's voice sounded. That's under normal circumstances. I'm different. Saying such a sentence, in front of them, in the dazzling light, Varley's figure gradually appeared. His whole body was still covered in pure white armor, but his size had almost doubled. Moreover, that pure white armor had become a lot more ferocious, like a dragon, making people's hair stand on end. Thanks to the bloodline of the Demon King, my magic power is very strong. By consuming a lot of magic power, I can freely use Juggernaut Drive for a short period of time. The time is only a few minutes, but it's enough. So, let's begin. After saying that, the light wings on Varley's back flapped fiercely, and his body shot out like a ray of light, appearing above Noah's head. Behind him, the pair of light wings actually twisted in an instant, as if they had turned into sharp spears. With the violent energy of a fierce beast, they enveloped Noah's whole body like raindrops. Noah's gaze was slightly cold. The magic power in his body surged out, and the air scales were opened to the maximum power. Ding 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 ding. Immediately, the sound of continuous collisions rang out from the air scales around Noah's body. Noah only felt that there were sharp spears attacking him from all directions. Once he lost the defense of the air scales, Noah would instantly become a hornet's nest. Chapter 652. Ding, 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 ding. Crisp sounds like steel colliding with steel rang from all directions around Noah. Divide, eat. Then, the Baoyu on Varley's body also made a sound, making the air scales around Noah's body suddenly dim, and its power was directly reduced by half. Boost, pressurization. However, almost at the same time, the Baoyu on Noah's hand also made a sound, making the air scales around his body suddenly brighten and return to their original state. Facing Noah's impregnable defense, Varley, who knew that there was not much time left and that he couldn't keep wasting time with Noah, suddenly changed the light wings behind him. The countless sharp spear-like attacks that covered Noah's body like raindrops condensed together like lightning. On the light wings, a vast amount of dragon power surged out like a flood. In the blink of an eye, the tip of the light wings flashed with a dazzling light, drawing an extremely tricky arc. Like a meteor, it fiercely pierced towards one of the air scales on Noah's body. Noah's senses that far exceeded his wild instinct and intuition allowed him to perceive the trajectory of the extremely tricky attack. At that moment, Noah's heart tightened, and he quickly raised the hand covered by the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, blocking in a direction as if he had foreseen it. Ding! The next moment, the sharp spear-like light wings and the scarlet-red ferocious gauntlets fiercely collided with each other, causing sparks to fly in all directions. Even this won't work? The attack was neutralized, and even Varley's eyes hidden under the dragon-like helmet flashed with a touch of surprise. Immediately, the sharp spear-like light wings that pierced the scarlet-red ferocious gauntlet suddenly spun at high speed like a top, bringing about a burst of wind-breaking sound. Then how about this? The sharp end of the high-speed rotation drilled into the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. Immediately after, it twisted in a strange manner, and a terrifying force erupted from it. Clang! With a resounding sound, Noah's hand, which was covered by the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, was actually knocked away. A chance! Suddenly, Noah's figure suddenly rushed forward like a ferocious giant beast. He raised his hand, which could no longer be called a fist, but a claw. He waved it directly at Noah, bringing a fierce claw wind, and fiercely fell on Noah's chest. The ferocious dragon claw landed on the gorgeous air scale. Divide, eat. The halved ability of the White Dragon Emperor's diving splitting was activated. However, this time, Noah didn't have the chance to activate the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear ability. On every part of the armor on Wally's body, all the jade gems flickered. Divide, eat, divide, eat, divide, eat, divide, eat, divide, eat, divide, eat. Without the slightest pause, Wally launched the diving dividing wings of the White Dragon Emperor, more than 10 times in a short span of 1 second. Poochie! Wally's ferocious dragon claw directly tore apart the air scale around Noah's body. Seeing this, even Noah's expression changed. Almost under the control of his instinct, which far exceeded his wild nature and intuition, he raised the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear in front of him. Clang! The ferocious dragon claw suddenly fell heavily on the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, causing a crisp sound, and at the same time, it also aroused a powerful impact. Noah felt as if his arm had been hit hard by something heavy. A powerful force hit his body, causing him to involuntarily take a step back. Looking at the unyielding Wally who continued to pounce on him, Noah's eyes flashed with a touch of sharpness. Immediately, his feet fiercely stomped on the ground, and the violent magic in his body suddenly poured into the ground. Boom! In the muffled sound of an explosion, the whole ground suddenly burst open. Boom! A burst of terrifying magic, like magma erupting from a volcano, suddenly rushed out from the ground. Like a surging wave, it bombarded Wally's body. Boom! The powerful impact composed of pure magic directly sent Wally, who was pouncing on Noah like a violent dragon, flying backward. At this moment, in front of Noah, a gorgeous magic array also rotated. Like a huge cannon muzzle, it was filled with oppressive magic, turning into a huge magic light beam. It rubbed against the air, causing a sharp sound of explosion, and fiercely fell on Wally who was flying backward. Boom, 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 boom. Suddenly, along with the sound of explosions, a burst of dense flames also exploded from Wally's body, setting off an overwhelming wave of fire. Under the bombardment of one magic beam after another, Varley cut a sorry figure. After using the Juggernaut Drive, the defense of Wally's armor was no less than Noah's air scale. Therefore, the pure magic light beam did not cause much damage to Wally. However, the magic light beam that fell on Wally's body had the dragon-slaying effect of Noah's Dragon Emperor incarnation. Varley couldn't ignore the fact that it contained a powerful destructive effect against dragon-type creatures. Therefore, an extremely obscure damage penetrated the armor and directly hit Wally's body. Wally groaned, gritted his teeth, and converted all the magic in his body into defensive properties, and fiercely rushed out of his body. Ha! With a loud roar, a surge of mana surged out of Wally's body and blasted into the surrounding airwaves, forcibly dispersing the incoming beams of mana and intense flames. TSK. Wally was speechless. Even the Juggernaut Drive can't defeat him. Wally, the power of that God Slayer, is definitely comparable to those guys in the top 10. Your previous evaluation of him was too low. Arubian also spoke. Now, you have consumed more than half of your magic power. If you continue to be in a stalemate, when your magic power is exhausted, your life will be in danger, and you will even lose your mind. There is not much time left. Wally naturally understood Arubian's meaning. Originally, Wally was using his powerful magic to replace the consumption of his life to perform the Juggernaut Drive for a short period of time. Once Wally's magic power was exhausted, the side effects of the Juggernaut Drive would definitely make Wally suffer. In that case, let's decide the outcome with one move. Wally made up his mind, soared into the sky, and arrived in the air above Chariot King Academy. On Wally's back, the faint blue light wings fully unfolded, shaking a wave of ripples. White Dragon Emperor's domain, half dimension. Waves of fluctuations reverberated from the fully unfolded light wings behind Wally, spreading in all directions. Buzz 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 buzz. Wherever the ripple-like fluctuations passed, the space actually trembled and began to distort. The white guy is going all out. On the ground, Drake's voice directly sounded in Noah's mind. Partner, that technique is capable of having the size of all targets within a certain range, including space itself. I reckon that it's that guy's final and strongest attack. So, you've already won. Don't you want to consider using your other incarnations? No need, Drake. Now is the time to use that move. Looking at Wally in the air, Noah's eyes flickered. Drake, are you okay? If you're right, Drake said cheerfully. Come and try your balance breaker. Chapter 653. Every sacred gear had its own balance breaker. However, in order to reach the balance breaker state, the sacred gear owner's emotions and desires had to be strong enough to reverse the flow of the world. Otherwise, no matter how strong they were, they would not be able to reach the balance breaker state. Ever since he was young, Noah had been forcing himself to stay calm in order not to let the overly massive magic power go berserk. Although his emotions couldn't be said to be unaffected, they were so strong that they could reverse the flow of the world. That was something that had never happened until now. Then, how could Noah reach the balance breaker state? At this point, Noah had an idea. Since the condition to reach the balance breaker state was that one's emotions and desires had to be strong enough to reverse the flow of the world, then if he skipped the steps of emotions and desires and directly reversed the flow of the world for himself, would he be able to reach the balance breaker state? If this idea was known by others, they would definitely laugh their heads off. Let's not talk about whether it would work or not. Even if it did work, how would he reverse the flow of the world for himself? Could it be that the world should revolve for a single person? That was simply a joke. However, when it came to Noah, it was not a joke. Gaia and Alea had once said that the world would not refuse Noah's request. Thus, if Noah requested the world to reverse the flow of the world for him, it was completely possible. This way, Noah would most likely reach the balance breaker state. Now, it was time to test this possibility. Noah raised the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear high above his head, his eyes shining with an unprecedented brilliance. Please, turn once for my sake. Noah's voice was like an echo, reverberating in the sky above Chariot King Academy. It reverberated through the buildings, past the demons, angels, and fallen angels. It reverberated through the barrier that covered Chariot King Academy and even penetrated the barrier, reverberating between heaven and earth. Ding! At this moment, a strange bell-like sound that only Noah could hear entered his heart. Clank! At this moment, in Noah's hand, the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear glowed with a dazzling light. Then, D-Leg shouted. Success! Even without Drake's reminder, Noah could clearly feel it. Noah could feel a powerful force seeping out of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, directly affecting his own body. Without hesitation, Noah poured all the mana in his body into the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. Balance breaker. In Noah's hand, the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear disintegrated into pieces and covered Noah's body. Hum. At the same time, the air scales around Noah's body shook and merged into the pieces. In mid-air, Wally's heart tightened. What happened? This is troublesome, Wally, Arubian said in a deep voice. That man has reached the balance breaker level. Arubian's words directly made Wally's heart tremble. Balance breaker? Noah has reached the balance breaker level? Didn't Noah just become the Red Dragon Emperor not long ago? How did he reach the balance breaker level? Wally, Arubian murmured in a dreamy voice. Perhaps we still underestimated the God Slayer. As soon as Arubian finished speaking, Noah's posture on the ground was exposed to the air. Upon closer inspection, Noah still looked the same. There was no change in his body at all, and he was not equipped with armor like Wally. However, around Noah's body, there seemed to be a phantom dragon that directly overlapped on top and attached to Noah's body. The phantom dragon was like a gas, fluctuating around Noah's body like a set of dragon-shaped full-body armor. The armor was almost the same as the armor Wally was equipped with when he used the balance breaker. The only difference was that it was crimson. Wally was stunned. What is that? Not to mention Wally, even Noah raised his hand in surprise. He looked at the crimson armor on his hand that was like a layer of phantom and asked in confusion. Is this the balance breaker of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear? Buddy, don't doubt it, that is indeed your balance breaker. Drake's voice also had a hint of surprise. However, your balance breaker seems to have fused with your gas scales, turning the original solid armor into a red gas-like armor. It should be called a gas armor, right? Gas armor? Feel it yourself and you'll know. Although there's no materialized armor, you've indeed used balance breaker, and your strength has increased explosively. Indeed, as Drake said, Noah could feel an explosive power surging in his body. Now, you can use the ability to multiply and transfer at any time at any ratio, and because of the fusion of the gas scales, the hardness of the armor has increased sharply. Drake's surprise began to turn into excitement. Don't worry about the battle, I will help you keep an eye on your balance breaker state. Hearing this, Noah smirked, raised his head, and looked at Wally in the air. Then, Wally, try taking my attack. As soon as he finished speaking, Noah raised his hand in the direction of the air. Wang! A huge magic array that was taller than a person suddenly expanded in front of Noah's palm. Inside, waves of terrifying magic began to flow. Then, on the scarlet gas-like armor around Noah's body, illusionary gems flickered. Boost 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 boost. As the voices rang out, the magic array in front of Noah vibrated repeatedly. As the voices rang out, the magic array expanded abruptly, and the mana surging within it also became extremely terrifying. In the end, the incomparably huge magic array produced a thunder-like sound of ripples. Inside, the terrifying magic seemed to have turned into a huge beam of light like a meteor, piercing through the sky. Under the countless shocked gazes of the surrounding demons, angels, and fallen angels, it burst toward Wally. Looking at the huge beam of light that burst toward him, Wally laughed, and he laughed excitedly. Then let me take a look. Along with Wally's loud laughter, the void around the huge beam of light seemed to have completely solidified at this moment. In the next second, the solidification between heaven and earth was suddenly broken, and the surrounding space also rapidly squirmed at this moment, vibrating circles of ripples that swept across the entire surrounding space. Wang 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 wang. As the circles of ripples swept across the space violently shook like a lake, and began to distort. Gotcha! Under the situation where half of its volume was exploited, the space itself had already directly cracked under the bone-chilling sound. Rubbing against the air, the huge beam of light that made heaven and earth tremble bombarded that side of the space. Boom! An earth-shattering noise resounded through the sky. Chapter 654. Rumble. Like meteorites colliding with each other in the universe, an earth-shattering sound reverberated. Rumble. The entire Chariot King Academy trembled slightly at this moment. Gotcha! On the ground, huge fissures spread out like a spider web. Bang! The sturdy buildings quickly collapsed under the loud sound waves. Boom! Ripples filled with the force of the collision rapidly spread out from the point of impact. Finally, they heavily bombarded the boundary around Chariot King Academy, causing it to tremble continuously. The members of the demon, angel, and fallen angel factions that were maintaining the barrier all revealed looks of horror. The thunderous explosion shook the entire Horse King Academy's buildings. At this moment, in the center of the Horse King Academy, in a distorted space, like a churning volcanic crater, dense flames were constantly stirring up, turning into waves of fire that spread out in an arc. At this moment, the space of the Horse King Academy began to violently tremble, and huge cracks spread along the space itself, shattering like glass. It was a scene of the end of the world. In the Horse King Academy, countless people raised their heads, and looked at the waves of fire rolling in the distorted space with shock. Even if they weren't in the middle of it, many people still felt that the air seemed to have become much hotter. In the waves of fire that distorted space, Varley raised his hand, and firmly resisted a huge beam of light. His whole body seemed to be on fire, crazily burning with magical power. Clearly, the White Dragon Emperor's domain, half dimension, from before wasn't able to completely block Noah's attack that had multiplied by who knows how many times. Although the terrifying beam of light was directly weakened by half by the White Dragon Emperor's domain, half dimension, and was weakened by more than 80% in the distorted space, the remaining power still allowed the beam of light to fall on Varley's body. Fortunately, at this point, Varley wasn't unable to block it. Divide, eat, divide, eat, divide, eat, divide, eat, divide, eat, divide, eat, divide, eat. The jade armor on his body continuously rang out, causing waves of fluctuations to linger around Varley's body, acting on the beam of light. Buzz! Under the effect of the powerful having ability, the beam of light that had multiplied by who knows how many times finally began to dim, and its volume became smaller and smaller. Divide, eat. When the last sound rang out, the beam of magic power that had struck Varley finally weakened to the size of an arm, and slowly dissipated. Bang! At the same time, the armor on Varley's hands were completely shattered, exposing his hands. A pair of hands that were dripping with blood, and even the skin had completely festered. Ha, 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 Varley was gasping for breath, and the mana in his body was getting weaker and weaker. It had already weakened to the point where it couldn't be seen. Enough. Varley. Arubian's voice sounded anxiously, which was rare. Remove the Juggernaut Drive state. Otherwise, it will deprive you of your life and make you lose your mind. Hearing this, Varley's heart was filled with unwillingness. That was because on the ground below, Noah, who was covered in overlapping phantoms like a crimson dragon, was still unscathed. The magic power on his body did not show any signs of weakening at all. It was still as vast and powerful as before. If it weren't for the fact that he would lose his mind if he continued to maintain the Juggernaut Drive state, Varley definitely wouldn't mind continuing to fight if it was only depriving his life. Varley didn't want to live for long at all. As long as he could fight with the strong, it didn't matter if his life was reduced by thousands or tens of thousands of years. Anyway, the lifespan of a demon was ridiculously long, and Varley didn't care about reducing his lifespan by thousands or tens of thousands of years. But if he lost his mind, that was another matter. After all, Varley wanted to enjoy the process of fighting. If he lost his mind, he wouldn't be enjoying the process of fighting at all, but would be obsessed with the result of the battle. Varley had no choice but to remove the Juggernaut Drive state. Bang! The armor all over his body shattered, revealing Varley's original figure. After landing on the ground, Varley only felt a burst of weakness in his body. He couldn't help but kneel on one knee, clutching his chest. His face was pale, but his eyes were still staring ahead. There, Noah maintained a red gaseous dragon-shaped armor and met Varley's gaze. It's a pity. If you could continue to use the Juggernaut Drive, you might be able to continue fighting with me. But now, your magic power is almost exhausted, and your physical strength is almost gone. You can't even use the balance breaker. It's impossible for you to be my opponent. Varley was speechless. After fully understanding Noah's true strength, Varley knew that it was impossible for him to defeat Noah. Even after using the Juggernaut Drive, he couldn't do anything to Noah, let alone now when he couldn't even use the Balance Breaker. After using the Juggernaut Drive, Varley's strength could already be ranked in the top 10 in the world. But after all, it was only for a few minutes. He couldn't really fight with those guys who could be ranked in the top 10. At most, he could only deal with those guys for a few minutes. Noah, on the other hand, undoubtedly had the qualifications to be ranked in the top 10. Just like what Arubian said. Varley previously underestimated Noah's strength. Bang! At this time, a loud noise came from the direction of the school building. Ah! In a chorus of screams, several figures flew out from the explosion of the school building. Like a kite with a broken string, they were scorched black and smoke rose from their bodies. They fell one after another around Varley. Seeing this, Varley's face changed. But Noah raised his eyebrows and smiled. It seems that the so-called descendants of the old Demon King are nothing more than this. The figures that fell around Varley were Cadilia, Karuba, and Chryselii, who had previously made a high-profile appearance. As the descendants of the three demon kings, Leviathan, Beelzebub, and Asmodeus, these three demons were now gasping for breath and were on the verge of death. And in the distance, Sazax, Asashel, and Michael flew over with Lys, Canna, and a group of followers and landed on the side. Teacher, Lys and the other girls looked at the crimson dragon-shaped aura armor on Noah and were all surprised. Even Sazax and Michael seemed to be a little surprised, let alone Lys and the others. Asashel looked directly at Varley and sighed after a long time. You lost, Varley. It seems so. Varley forced himself to stand up, his eyes still staring at Noah with a burning gaze. As expected of the God-Slayer. It's great that such a person can become my rival. Hearing this, Asashel's sigh became even more obvious. Are you not going to surrender? I admit that I lost this time, but it's too early to surrender. I still have more powerful enemies to challenge. Varley glanced at Asashel and then looked straight at Noah. I'll say the same thing again. I'll be back. After saying so, a magic array appeared beneath Vale's body, enveloping him. He then teleported away, disappearing without a trace. From the beginning to the end, Asashel did not stop him and just looked at him in a daze. Is this okay? Noah said faintly. The next time we meet, we'll be enemies again. It's okay. Asashel pretended to be calm and looked at Noah with a smile. Aren't you still here? Noah immediately rolled his eyes, and the crimson dragon-shaped aura armor on his body slowly disappeared. One by one, demons, angels, and fallen angels began to fly over. Presumably, the next period of time would be used to clean up the mess. Chapter 655. Early in the morning, Chariot King Academy's old schoolhouse. In the open space in front of the old schoolhouse, Noah's eyes were tightly closed. Crimson gas was constantly rolling around his body, sometimes condensing into the shape of scales, sometimes condensing into the shape of an armor, and sometimes condensing into the shape of a dragon. After an unknown amount of time, the crimson gas fluctuating around Noah's body formed into a layer of dragon-shaped armor. It was as if a dragon's phantom directly overlapped on Noah's body. The aura on his body gradually carried a trace of the unique fierceness and ruthlessness of a dragon, which was very oppressive. If one looked carefully, they would notice. Compared to the last time when he fought with Varley, the crimson dragon-shaped armor on Noah's body not only became more solid, the scales on the armor were also quite clear. Even the eyes on the dragon-shaped armor's head were shining, as if there was a real dragon overlapping on Noah's body. It was very realistic. Phew, then, Noah let out a sigh of relief and opened his eyes. It seems that the most stable state of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, Balance Breaker, can only stop here. Compared to when you first used Balance Breaker, it is indeed a lot more stable. In terms of proficiency, you have already reached the peak. Drake's voice sounded in Noah's mind. In your current state, the duration of your balance breaker can be counted in years. Even if you continuously use it, you can still maintain it for at least 3 months. Really, this is the first time I've seen a host who can use balance breaker to such an extent. You really are an abnormal guy. As a legitimate descendant of the Demon King, Varley relied on the Demon King's bloodline to be so amazing. He was even able to use the curse-like Juggernaut Drive for a short period of time. One could imagine his ability. However, even so, Varley could only maintain balance breaker for a month. If he continuously used it, the duration would be shortened to about a day. This was already very terrifying. Unfortunately, Noah broke the rules even more than Wally. Although he didn't have the Demon King's bloodline, Noah was the type with unlimited potential. His innate magic power was so great that even Tony could be compared to the God-Slayer. After becoming a God-Slayer, Noah's magic power was indescribably vast. As a descendant of the Demon King, Wally's magic power was immeasurable. It could even be used as a temporary consumption of his life to use the Juggernaut Drive. But even so, Wally's magic power was still inferior to that of the God-Slayer. Before Noah had become a God-Slayer, his magic power was already comparable to a God-Slayer's. After becoming a God-Slayer, his magic power was at a foul level among the God-Slayers. Compared to Wally, he was much stronger. In addition, the God-Slayer could grow in battle, but Noah could grow even if he didn't fight. One had to know that the person ranked first had limitless power, not to mention others. Noah didn't dare to say that he could compare to that person. If that was the case, could he really be satisfied? No, I still have more possibilities that I haven't unearthed. Noah's eyes flashed. If I can use my 10 avatars further, my strength will greatly increase. That's right. Further use. Noah had already used the power of the 10 avatars to the extreme and unearthed all the possibilities. The next step was to persevere and strengthen it. However, that was only for the use of one avatar. If Noah could use 2 avatars at the same time, what would it be like? If it was possible, what would happen if he used 3, 4, 5, or even the final 10 avatars at the same time? Noah had this idea for a long time. Now, it was time for him to make further use of his authority. It wasn't familiarity, control, or unearthing, but a further sublimation. I haven't reached my limit yet. I still have more room for improvement. Noah clenched his fists, his eyes abnormally bright. After canceling the use of the Dragon Emperor, Noah walked towards the old school building. Chapter 656. Huh. In the Paranormal Research Department, Leia stared at Noah in astonishment, losing her composure. You want to challenge my brother? It was not just Leah. Even Zhu Nai, Kitten, Aisha, Genova, Irina, Laybel, Kiba Yuto and the others were stunned on the spot. Era. Zhu Nai, who had always been at a loss. What's going on? Sensei. Aisha panicked. Is there some misunderstanding between you and Lord Sazax? No, you're thinking too much. Noah smiled bitterly and shook his head. I just want to challenge Sazax, that's all. Challenge the Demon King? Genova stared blankly at Noah. But you're both the God-Slayer and the Crimson Dragon Emperor. The previous few battles have already proven that you're no weaker than any god or Demon King. Why do you still want to challenge the Demon King? It's just as Aisha said. Is there some misunderstanding? Irina raised her hand meekly. Actually, we can all sit down and talk, don't be rash. Lord Noah. Even Lei Bei Air was flustered. She no longer cared about her usual haughtiness and blurted out incoherently. If you hurt Lord Sazax, the demons will be furious. Kitten did not say anything in particular. She just stared at Noah with a puzzled gaze, as if trying to read something from Noah's expression. She was quite serious. One could only imagine how shocking Noah's words were. Challenging Sazax. That was indeed quite shocking. Undoubtedly, Noah and Sazax did not have any conflict. Why would he suddenly want to challenge Sazax? I'm sorry, Sensei. I don't know what you're planning, but could you please give up on that idea? Leah's brow was already tightly furrowed. Big Brother is the Demon King. He has already put in a lot of effort to maintain the order of the underworld. Furthermore, the three great forces are currently in the process of concluding a peace treaty. There are many things that need to be done. If possible, I hope that teacher will not propose any challenges at this time. Leah was hinting at Noah not to add to the mess. However, Noah did not change his mind so easily. That's fine. I just want to trouble you to pass the challenge letter. As for the time of the challenge, it's fine if we wait until Sazax is free. Noah made a direct declaration. All in all, I will definitely fight Sazax. Just pass on the message for me. With that, Noah turned around, intending to leave without waiting for Leah's answer. Wait. Wait. And seeing that Noah didn't seem to be joking at all, Lias panicked all of a sudden. Without caring about anything else, she hurried forward and grabbed Noah's hand. Shouldn't you at least tell me why you want to challenge my brother? I remember that you get along quite well with him, don't you? It seemed that even Leah thought that Noah was challenging Sazax because he had some conflict with the Demon King. At that moment, Noah could only shake his head helplessly. So, don't worry. I don't have any conflict with Sazax. I just need an opponent. Opponent? Everyone present, including Leah, was stunned. Yes, an opponent. Noah narrowed his eyes and smiled suddenly. An evenly matched opponent. That was the reason why Noah challenged Sazax. As early as the first time he saw Sazax, Noah had sensed that Sazax had an aura that was not inferior to that of an ordinary deicide, and could even catch up with ancient deicides like Warban and Luohao. At that time, Noah did not understand the extent of power in this world, and thought that the demon kings were about this level of strength. But now, after a period of understanding and Drake's explanation, Noah already knew that ordinary gods and demon kings could not reach this level of strength at all. Other things aside, as the leader of the fallen angels, Sazax definitely had the strength of a demon king or above. However, Noah felt that Sazax's strength was not at the level of deicides like Warban and Luohao. Sazax, on the other hand, could reach the level of an ancient deicides like Warban and Luohao, which proved that Sazax's strength could also be ranked in the top 10 in this world. In this way, Noah had a reason to challenge Sazax. It had been said before that ordinary training could not make a deicide stronger. A deicides could only become stronger in battle. Although Noah would enter a state of self-enhancement when he was not using it because of the past limited ability of the fusion of authority, that was at most an increase in the strength of authority itself. If Noah wanted to reach a new level of use of authority, he could only comprehend it through battle. In that case, it would definitely be more effective than Noah's rigid fumbling alone. This was a deicides. In order to reach a further use of the authority of the 10 incarnations, Noah only needed to fight. Therefore, Noah needed an opponent of the same level. An opponent who could be ranked in the top 10 of this world, who belonged to the world's top powerhouses. Among the existences that Noah knew, only Sazax could meet such an opponent. Therefore, Noah could only challenge Sazax. I know that it will be difficult for you to make such a sudden request, but I don't want to do anything. Just tell Sazax that I can do it at any time. Noah sighed. If you can agree to my request, I'll be very happy. Seeing that Noah did not seem to be faking it, Riaz and the others looked at each other. At that moment, a frivolous voice echoed throughout the supernatural research department. That sounds interesting. Let me give you a hand. As those words were spoken, a figure appeared on the luxurious desk of the supernatural research department accompanied by the light of a teleportation circle. He sat on top of it and imprinted himself into everyone's eyes. Athasiel? Everyone was astonished. The one who had come was none other than a Sashal. You want to challenge Sazax, don't you? Athasiel said to Noah with a standard malicious smile on his face. I can help you contact Sazax. Hearing that, Riaz put on a straight face. What do you want? Not only Riaz, but even the group of kin stared at Athasiel with extreme vigilance. The man in front of them was no ordinary fallen angel, but the leader of the fallen angels. Simply put, he was the leader of the bad guys. Who would not be on guard? Don't be so nervous. There's no harm in it anyway, is there? Athasiel himself was extremely nonchalant. You need to go to the underworld during summer vacation, right? By then, Sazax will probably have some free time, right? Then a fight shouldn't be a problem, right? Noah's heart skipped a beat as he looked at Riaz. Are you going back to the underworld during summer vacation? Usually, I will go back to the underworld during summer vacation. Riaz glared at Athasiel, but still answered truthfully. And this time, there's a gathering of the new generation of demons during summer vacation. Including me and Kana, several young superior pure-blooded demons who are about to debut into adulthood will be attending. So, I plan to take my servants to the underworld during summer vacation. Also, the signing of the peace treaty between the three major factions is almost done. Michael and I will also be going to the underworld. Athasiel spread his hands. So, when the time comes, I will be going with you. All of a sudden, Riaz and the other girls showed signs of reluctance. It seemed that these girls did not have any feelings of closeness to Athasiel. Summer vacation, huh? Noah murmured, and then the corner of his mouth curled up. I hope I can achieve the goal of training. Training? Riaz was a little incredulous. You challenged my brother just to train? It's not strange that you need to train, right? Athasiel interrupted. Why don't you let me arrange training for all of you during your time in the underworld? Why? Riaz and the others all objected. In response, Athasiel only smiled. Don't worry, I'll train all of you well. Everyone's face turned bitter. He stayed in the infirmary and worked hard every day. From time to time, he would go to the supernatural research department to show his face. It was worth mentioning that a Sashal had also become a teacher at the Colt King Academy and a consultant for the supernatural research department. Sazix's sister has a relative that I'm interested in. Plus, you, the God Slayer and the Red Dragon Emperor are also here. It would be a waste if I don't observe closely. That was what a Sashal said himself. However, Noah felt that a Sashal had another reason for doing so. I heard that one of my subordinates seemed to have wanted to make a move on the child named Aisha. Really, they kept causing trouble for me. I have no choice but to think of a way to make up for it. This was another way of saying by a Sashal. Noah did not have any objections to this. However, it was said that under a Sashal's request, Liaz and her family had to train in the underworld during the summer break. Including Aisha. Boo-hoo, on the way home, Aisha said a little uneasily. Will I really be okay? It's just training for a while. Don't worry. Noah patted Aisha's head. Besides, Aisha is not a combatant. She's a support type. Your training won't be too dangerous. But I'm also a pawn, Aisha said with tears in her eyes. Sister Leah said that the role of a pawn is to charge into the enemy's main camp. Only then can you gain the right to be promoted and be a pawn. It was also said before that a pawn had the ability to upgrade to any pawn other than the king in the enemy's camp when they obtained the permission of the king. They could obtain the ability of that pawn and change it at will. This included the queen. It was also because of this that generally speaking, pawns were better at charging into enemy lines and fighting head-on. Very few pawns were focused on healing. For Aisha, this must be something that she was very concerned about, right? However, Noah had a different opinion. Who said that pawn can't focus on healing as a support? Members who focus on healing need the ability to protect themselves the most. As long as they can protect themselves, even if their teammates fall, they can still heal them and let them return to the battlefield. If they are defeated, it will be a real loss, Noah said. And pawns can be upgraded. As long as they can be upgraded to a rook, not to mention attack power, the enhanced defense will increase your survivability. If you are upgraded to a knight, you will also gain a speed bonus. If you are targeted by the enemy, you can immediately run away. If you are upgraded to a bishop, you will be able to increase your magic power and increase the effectiveness of your healing. Not to mention, if you are upgraded to a queen, you will gain all the special abilities. You have 4 pawns in your body. Those powers will definitely increase your strength. Noah patted Aisha's shoulder. So, don't think too much. It's just a different direction of development. It's definitely not that you are not suitable to be a pawn, understand? Hearing Noah's words, Aisha suddenly became a lot more spirited. Understood, teacher. I will work hard. Noah nodded with satisfaction. At this time, Noah also noticed. Kitten, who was standing at the side, had been maintaining her silence. She lowered her head and walked silently. Kitten was indeed a synonym for silence. However, Kitten was usually not silent to the extent that she almost did not say a word. This made Noah feel a little strange. He could not help but ask. What's wrong? Kitten? However, Kitten did not seem to hear Noah's voice at all. She still lowered her head silently and continued to walk forward. Noah, who felt more and more that something was wrong, patted Kitten's shoulder. Why aren't you saying anything? Kitten. Ah. Kitten seemed to have been startled awake and came back to her senses. What's wrong? Noah frowned. Did Kitten not hear Noah's words all this time? Kitty-chan. Aisha also said with a little worry. Are you feeling unwell? No, it's not. Kitten shook her head, but did not explain anything. She quickened her pace and walked forward. Kitty-chan. Wait for me. Aisha quickly chased after her. Seeing this, Noah fell into deep thought. Something was wrong with Kitten's appearance. Nighttime, after the lights went out, Aisha and Kitten were already asleep under the blanket. Speaking of which, in the beginning, Kitten moved in here to keep an eye on Noah. Later on, she continued to stay here to keep an eye on Aisha. Now, it was basically certain that Noah would not harm Lyeth. Since Aisha had become Lyeth's dependent, she should not do anything. Kitten should have left after accomplishing her mission. However, since Aisha did not want to leave, Kitten stayed with her. Lying on the bed that covered the floor, just as Noah felt a little sleepy, a petite body crawled into Noah's arms. Noah was immediately awakened. The sleepiness in his head was gone. He lowered his head, looked at his arms, and was stunned. Kitten? The one who crawled into Noah's bed was Kitten. At this moment, Kitten was looking at Noah with teary eyes and said something that made Noah's brain go blank. Teacher, please take me. Chapter 658. Teacher, please possess me. In the dead of the night, a lowly student who looked to be only 13 or 14 years old, but was as cute as a doll, burrowed into his arms. She even looked at him with moist eyes and said something that made him think of Pian Pian. What kind of reaction should he have? Noah didn't know how others would react. As for Noah himself, he had already widened his eyes to the maximum. He looked at the kitten in his arms with astonishment in his eyes. It was not as if Noah had not experienced a similar scene before. Almost every day, Genova would bring Irina to secretly find an opportunity to kidnap Noah to a place where there was no one. Sometimes, they would even bring Isha, which almost made Noah collapse. So now, Noah was almost not surprised by such things. But that was only limited to Genova, Irina, and Isha. Now, the one who crawled into Noah's arms and said something like that to Noah was none other than the kitten. The kitten who always had a disgusted attitude towards sex, and when Noah took advantage of Noah, the kitten would not hesitate to throw an iron fist at him. How could Noah not be surprised when the kitten suddenly crawled into Noah's arms like that? But the kitten didn't seem to be joking. Meow, just like a real cat, the kitten in pajamas had an intoxicating blush on her cheeks that could be clearly seen even in the night, and she let out a cute meow. She gave off a charming feeling. Then, the kitten approached Noah in a daze. She sat up from Noah's arms and began to unbutton her pajamas. She didn't give Noah any time to react. When the kitten unbuttoned her pajamas, she threw it away. When he threw it away, an extremely petite, yet abnormally soft and fair body entered Noah's eyes. Only then did Noah realize that the kitten was not only not wearing any underwear, but her lower body was also completely naked. Even if it was said that once the kitten undid the pajamas on the upper half of her body, her entire delicate body would be completely naked. In this state, the kitten's breathing was rapid and her face was flushed. She bent down and hugged Noah tightly. The next moment, a soft body that was completely soaked in sweat pressed against Noah's body. Immediately, the kitten began to take off Noah's clothes. Wait. Kitten. Seeing that the kitten didn't seem to be joking, Noah quickly grabbed the kitten's hand. What's wrong with you? You've been acting weird since today. Teacher. The kitten raised her head, her beautiful big eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, I can't control myself. Saying this, the kitten directly grabbed Noah's hand and pressed it on her small breasts. Although it was very small. But that soft touch did pass through the palm to Noah's nerves. Meow, the kitten made a sweet sound that was very comfortable. Noah's hand was almost frozen on the kitten's body, and even his expression was completely frozen. What happened? What exactly happened? What the hell was this situation? What happened to the kitten? When Noah was puzzled by this, the kitten had already bent down again. With an extremely seductive expression, she actually licked Noah's neck. Oh. Teacher's taste, clearly feeling the unique touch of the kitten's tongue, Noah's whole body quivered. You know. Even Mira and Lisanna didn't lick Noah's body like this. Now, Aloli was tempting Noah like this. How could Noah bear it? Moreover, the kitten's tongue that was licking Noah's neck was constantly moving. Moving to Noah's cheek, then moving to the tip of his nose, and finally, even moving in the direction of Noah's mouth, and constantly licking the corner of Noah's mouth. Feeling that something was wrong, Noah immediately broke away from the kitten's hand, put his hand on the kitten's extremely slender shoulder, and pushed the kitten away. Kitten, what's wrong with you? Oh. The kitten just looked at Noah with an intoxicated expression and eyes. She didn't say anything, and continued to stick out her small tongue, as if absent-mindedly licking Noah's arm that was on her shoulder. Finally, Noah found that something was wrong with the kitten. First of all, the kitten's body was very hot, very hot. Her whole body was emitting a surprising amount of heat, making her face that red. Secondly, there was a trace of shadow in the kitten's eyes. Her eyes that were full of water kept shaking, but there was no focus at all. That was simply a sign that she had lost her mind. This behavior directly calmed Noah down. Then, a scene that surprised Noah appeared in front of Noah's eyes. Meow, only to see, in the kitten's coquettish voice, a pair of white cat ears appeared from the kitten's head, constantly twitching. Immediately, on the kitten's petite buttocks, a small white tail suddenly stretched out and wrapped around one of Noah's arms, wriggling non-stop, giving Noah a ticklish feeling. At the same time, Noah's extraordinary sensing ability also felt an abnormal fluctuation of power from the kitten's body in this posture. That was neither magic nor light power, a completely new kind of power that Noah had never encountered before. That power was like the aura flowing in nature. It was very pure and pure. The kitten was actually hiding such power? Moreover, what's with this posture? Just as Noah was surprised, the kitten's hand reached towards his lower body. This time, Noah finally could not stay calm. Sorry, kitten, you should sleep first. Noah suddenly reached out a hand and pressed it behind the kitten's neck. A faint trace of magic hit it, causing the kitten's pupils to dilate, her head to tilt, and she fell directly into Noah's arms, unable to get up again. Noah then heaved a huge sigh of relief. He got up, and after feeling the temperature of the kitten in his arms gradually drop, he murmured. Why did the kitten suddenly undergo such a change? Moreover, it was very obvious that the kitten did not do it by herself, but because she had lost her mind. At that moment, Noah grabbed the blanket and covered the naked body of the kitten lying in his arms. Then, he closed his eyes. Drager, wake up, I have something to ask you. Usually, Bo and Drager, who were purely residing in Noah's soul with their consciousness, were unable to stay awake. They could only wake up when Noah called or under special circumstances. Now, under Noah's call, Drager's consciousness, which was residing in Noah's soul, began to stir, and gradually began to wake up. Waking me up without using the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, what a rare situation. Don't joke with me. Noah went straight to the point. What's with the kitten's state? Kitten? Is that the child in your arms? Drager seemed to have noticed the kitten's cat ears and tail, and asked in surprise. It's actually a Nicomida, that's really rare. Nicomida? Noah frowned. Are you referring to the cat demon? That's right, it's a cat demon, also known as a Nicomida in this country. Drager said. Moreover, this Nicomida's body also has the aura of an immortal technique. She's probably the strongest of the Nicomida race, a superior monster that can use both demonic and immortal techniques. The descendants of the Nicomida race are simply the rarest of the rare races. Hearing Drager's words, Noah immediately understood. The kitten was probably not a human that reincarnated into a demon, but a monster that reincarnated into a demon. That pure energy should be the immortal technique that Drager mentioned. In other words, the kitten had been hiding her identity. Could this be the kitten's unbearable past? But, why did the kitten lose her mind? This might be caused by you. Drager voiced his guess. The Nicomida are superior monsters that can use immortal techniques, and are very sensitive to nature and the aura of the human body. Recently, you've been exploring the use of a higher level of power, and the aura in your body has increased too much. Moreover, this Nicomida has been hanging around you all day, and deliberately suppressing her power. After being stimulated by you, the hidden power was finally activated, causing this Nicomida to lose her mind, right? In other words, this was indeed caused by Noah. But why would the kitten deliberately hide such power? Looks like it's time to talk to Leah. Chapter 659. The next day, at the Supernatural Research Department, Leah's, Junai, Isha, Genova, Irina, Label, Kiba Yudo, and the others were all speechless as they watched the scene on the sofa. Noah was sitting there with a bitter expression on his face. He felt very uncomfortable under the gaze of Leah's and the others, but there was nothing he could do. There was no other reason. At this time, there was a petite and lovely person in Noah's arms. Meow, with a cute meow, the kitten with a pair of white cat ears was like a kitten that kept acting coquettishly towards Noah. Not only did it hug Noah's neck tightly, but it also wrapped its tail around Noah's arm and used its little tongue to lick Noah's neck and cheeks. If it was really a cat, then these actions should all be the cat's way of expressing its closeness to Noah. But if it was an extremely cute kitten, then no matter how one looked at it, it would look like a show of affection to others. If Noah had not been avoiding it, the kitten would have licked Noah's lips without hesitation and stuck its tongue into Noah's mouth to entangle with Noah. Or rather, it was already good enough that it did not take off its clothes like last night and try to push Noah down. Sigh. Leah's rubbed her temples and looked at Isha. What's going on? I don't know. Isha glanced at the kitten that kept licking Noah's neck and cheeks. Her pretty face was already puffed up as if she was quite envious. It became like this after waking up this morning. Then what's with the cat ears and tail? She squatted beside Noah and stared at the kitten's tail that was wrapped around Noah's arm. Then, she asked in amazement, that's right. It doesn't look fake. Come to think of it, you guys still don't know about this. Zhu Nai did not wear his usual smile, which was rare. Instead, he looked at the kitten with a complicated look in his eyes. The kitten was not human before it was reincarnated as a demon. It was a cat demon of the cat demon race. Cat demon? Genova seemed to have remembered something. If I remember correctly, it's a rather high and rare race among the demons, right? It's a very high and rare race among the cat demon race that can use both immortal and magical arts at the same time. Laybelle seemed to know something about this. She kept glancing at the kitten's direction, and seeing how close the kitten was acting to Noah. Laybelle was a little angry. But, what's going on? Why is the kitten clinging on to Teacher Noah? All of a sudden, everyone's gazes were once again gathered's face and the kitten's. Under such circumstances, even Noah was a little annoyed. While dodging the kitten's incessant licking tongue, he yelled at Leah's direction. Can't you think of something, Liesel? You say that, but I don't know what's going on. Liesel frowned and came to the side of the sofa. She touched the kitten's forehead, then its belly, and her frown deepened. Its body temperature is very high, and its behavior is very abnormal. The kitten must have lost its mind. Why is it like this? It seems to be because of my influence. Noah recalled Drake's guess. According to Drake, the kitten is a rare cat demon that can use immortal spells. It's very sensitive to chi. Recently, I've been exploring new ways to use my power, which caused the chi in my body to increase greatly. Moreover, the kitten has been hiding its immortal spell power, so it was stimulated by my greatly increased chi, which caused the kitten to lose its mind. Is that so? Liesel was relieved. It's probably because the kitten lost its mind that Nicomeda's estrus period was stimulated, and it was stimulated by your chi. That's why the kitten uncontrollably clinged onto you, right? Nicomeda's estrus period? Noah muttered, but before he could think about it, the kitten came up and licked Noah's lips, causing Noah's face to crumble. By the way, why is the kitten hiding its identity and power? Aside from Aisha, Genova, and Irina, who were former believers of the church, Liesel, Zhu Nai, and Kiba Yudo all lowered their heads and fell into silence. Even Laybelle seemed to have thought of something. Could it be, seeing that, Noah turned his gaze to Laybelle. Laybelle, do you know what's going on? Ah. Laybelle did not expect Noah to ask her directly. She panicked a little at Noah's question, and then deliberately coughed and pretended to be calm. I've only heard about it. Even if you ask me, I can't tell you too much. Although she said that, Laybelle also began to explain. I once heard that a few years ago, a superior demon found a pair of homeless cat demon sisters whose parents had died. They had no one to call home and no one to rely on. He took a fancy to the cat demon sister's potential and made the cat demon sister his family. Laybelle's expression suddenly became serious. However, the cat demon sister's potential was above that superior demon's estimation. After being reincarnated as a demon, she grew very quickly and obtained extraordinary power, surpassing her master in a short time. Moreover, she was devoured by an excessively powerful force and turned into an evil person who only cared about blood and battle. Noah's expression darkened at that. Backlash of power. In other words, the cat demon sister went berserk because of an excessively powerful force? This made Noah involuntarily recall his childhood. The cat demon sister, whose power increased endlessly, killed her master in the end and became a lost demon. Moreover, she was one of the most dangerous lost demons. She was able to annihilate all the demon troops that were pursuing her. Even now, no one has been able to bring her to justice. Laybelle secretly glanced at Kitten. In the end, the superiors decided not to pursue the cat demon sister for the time being to avoid unnecessary sacrifices. Instead, they turned to the cat demon sister and held her accountable. It said that they were worried that the cat demon sister would lose control in the future, so they planned to execute the cat demon sister. With that, Laybelle closed her mouth and did not say anything else. This was because Lyeth sighed. It was Big Brother who saved her and convinced all the superior demons to hand her over to me to manage. She became my dependent. At this point, there was no need for any more explanation. Needless to say, the cat demon's sister must be Kitten, right? Ever since she became my family, I've never seen Kitten use any sorcery or immortal arts. She rarely even uses her mana, and only uses the rook attribute to attack and defend in battle. Lilith stroked Kitten's head affectionately. Kitten was worried that she would end up like her sister if she used that power. She would be consumed by the power, lose her mind, and become an evil person who kills without batting an eyelid. That's why she's been hiding her identity and power. Everyone present fell silent. Junai, Label, and Kiba Yudo should more or less know about Kitten's situation, right? As for Aisha, Genova, Irina, and the others, they did not expect Kitten to have such a past. Even Noah's gaze became complicated when he saw Kitten with red cheeks and moist eyes. She kept coming up to him and licking his face and neck like a spoiled child. According to their previous conversations, Noah knew that Kitten had a past that he did not want to recall. However, Noah did not expect that Kitten's past was somewhat similar to his own. She was worried that her power would go berserk, so she deliberately hid her power. It was almost the same as how Noah trained his temperament and magic control to not go berserk when he was young. The difference was that Noah chose to take the initiative to train himself due to his exceedingly powerful power, while the Kitten sealed that power away as if it was escaping from it. One intended to treat the root of the problem. The other intended to treat the symptoms. That was the difference. Of course, the current problem was still to solve Kitten's mental disorder. There's no other way. We have to go to the underworld ahead of time. In the end, Lilith made the decision. If we go to the main family, we should be able to find more information about the Nikomata clan. Noah could only nod. Chapter 660. There was about a week left before Colt King Academy's summer break. With Noah and Leah in the lead, the entire paranormal research department had applied for leave and started their summer break a week earlier. They followed Leah to the station closest to Colt King Academy. Station? Noah asked Leah as he hugged the kitten that was clinging to him tightly, despite the strange looks from the people around him. Why are we at the station? Do you even need to ask? Leah answered matter-of-factly. To the underworld, of course. Underworld? Could it be that taking the train at the station will bring us to the underworld? Then this underworld is really down to earth. Noah could not find the words to complain, but he could not tell what was going on either. All he could do was hug the kitten obediently and follow Leah. Meow, the kitten's face was still as red as ever, and its eyes were filled with tears. Its ears and tail were wagging happily, but it did not lick Noah's face or neck. Instead, it kept rubbing itself against Noah's chest as if it found it comfortable. The people at the station seemed to have thought of the kitten as a naughty child, and did not really think that the kitten's ears and tail were real. Still, they were struck by the kitten's cuteness. Noah could even hear many of the middle-aged men panting uncontrollably, and the corner of his eye twitched. Under such circumstances, Leah led Noah and the rest to the elevator in the station. Well then, Sensei, the kitten, Aisha, and Label, follow me. The rest of you, Genova and Irina, follow Junai and Yudo. Yes, sir. Junai, Genova, Irina, and Kiba Yudo nodded in response. Then, Noah carried the kitten and entered the elevator with Aisha and Label. The next moment, the elevator doors closed. In the elevator, there were only 1 and 2 displayed on the screen. Leah took out something that looked like a card from her uniform's pocket and placed it in front of the elevator's electronic panel. Beep. A sound effect, as if a scan had been verified, began to play. Immediately after that, the elevator moved, and it actually moved downwards. Below? Noah looked at Lias in confusion. Is there another floor below the station? Not only Noah, but even Isha could not hide her surprise and nervousness. She tightly tugged at Noah's sleeve with tears in her eyes. It feels like I'm going to hell. So scary. You may say that, but the underworld is above hell in the first place. Liaz laughed bitterly. The hell that contains the souls of the sinners of this world is below the underworld. Therefore, going to the underworld is equivalent to going to hell. Ah. Aisha was even more scared now. Undoubtedly, he's going to the underworld before he dies. Will he not be able to come back? Looking at Isha's timid appearance and innocent words, everyone could only smile helplessly. There's a secret floor under this station, a place that only demons know about. On the side, Laybell acted as a commentator. That's a route used exclusively by demons. Most humans would never be able to enter it in their entire lives. Places like this are not only hidden in this station, but also in this town and other places in the human world. At that, Laybell suddenly said to Noah with a fake smile. By the way, teacher, you must be tired from carrying the kitten like this. Why don't you put it down? Laybell's sudden change in topic almost made Noah unable to react. When he did, he sighed. I want to as well, but do you think it's possible? Meow. The kitten seemed to be pandering to Noah's words. It hugged Noah tightly like a spoiled child and kept rubbing against Noah's chest with a satisfied look on its face. Ugh. Isha and Laybell immediately teared up at the same time. I'm so envious. While they were chatting, the elevator finally stopped and the door gently opened. What appeared in front of Noah's group was an extremely vast space. It was like a huge hole in the ground. Its structure was very similar to a platform in a train station, but the furnishings were somewhat different from a human train station. There was also a space for a track. With that, Noah finally confirmed it. If they wanted to go to the underworld, they would need to take a car and not just take an elevator. After a while, Zhu Nai and Kiba Yudo brought Genova and Irina down. This is the underworld? It doesn't feel like it. It seemed that even Genova and Irina thought that they could take the elevator directly to the underworld. Once they came out of the elevator and saw the vast space in front of them, they were immediately confused. Ignoring Genova and Irina's confusion, Liath clapped her hands. All right, since we're all here, let's get on the train and depart for the underworld. I've already notified them. The Gimli family's private train should be here soon. As soon as this sentence fell, in front of the tracks, a train with sharp angles and engraved with patterns representing demons suddenly appeared in a burst of spatial fluctuations. It directly drove out of space and stopped on the tracks. So, we need to take a train to the underworld? Beep! The train's whistle echoed in the space. Sitting in the middle of the train, Noah, who was hugging the kitten, looked out through the window and saw a space that swayed like water waves. Clearly, this train was passing through the barrier between the human world and the demon world, heading toward the underworld. Since she was the owner of this train, Liath went to the carriage at the front of the train. With Noah in the lead, the Gimli family members sat in the middle of the carriage. A train to the underworld, how should I put it? It feels like a horror story. Aisha, Genova, and Irina were gathered together. They leaned against the car window with great interest, looking at the scenery outside and chatting happily. Speaking of which, why do we need to take a train to enter the underworld? Noah turned his head and looked at Zhu Nai and Laybell, who were also talking. Isn't there a magic circle that can transfer to other spaces? Can't we just use the magic circle to enter the underworld directly? Generally speaking, you can do that, Zhu Nai explained. However, people like teacher who enter the underworld for the first time have to go through an official channel to enter the underworld. Otherwise, it will be treated as illegal entry. Minister Liath should be handling the official entry procedures for teacher right now, right? Entry? Noah was speechless. So, entering the underworld also requires entry procedures? How should I put it? Is that the underworld that everyone fears? Or is it some foreign country that provides travel for others? It feels like there's something wrong with all kinds of things, that. Laybell began to fidget for no reason. Her pretty face was also slightly red. She looked at Noah and mustered up her courage. Teacher, if you have time, you can also go to Phoenix's house. Phoenix's house? Noah found it strange. Why go to Phoenix's house? Nothing. Laybell lowered her head, and her voice became inaudible. It's just that my family wants to see you. Laybell's voice was very soft, but Noah still heard it. At that moment, Noah could only laugh dryly. An hour later, looking up at the sky that was as clear as a lake, and then at the huge building that resembled a castle, Noah, who was once served like a king by the people of the magic world, was speechless. This is the Gimli family's house. Lias said proudly to Aisha, Genova, Irina, and Laybell. From today onwards, this is also your home. After all of you are my family, and Laybell is no exception. Apart from Phoenix's house, please treat this place as your home as well. Yes, Lady Leah, Laybell replied obediently. Aisha, Genova, and Irina, on the other hand, were so stunned by the huge building that they had yet to react, and did not know how to reply. Anyway, come with me to meet my family first. Leah shook her head with a smile, and then looked at Noah. Teacher, you should take the kitten to rest first, and have Gulifia take you to my brother later. He should know how to solve the kitten's problem. Sazax? Noah narrowed his eyes slightly. Is he free now? I don't know if he's free. Leah only then remembered the duel between Noah and Sazax, and her expression became more or less serious. But my brother should meet you. Noah nodded, and the corner of his mouth slowly curled up. This is getting more and more exciting, Sazax. Chapter 661. In a room as spacious as the hall of a mansion, Noah let the kitten lie down on a bed that was large enough for 5 people to sleep on. Meow, at this time, the kitten seemed to be really tired. She closed her eyes and with a sweet voice that made people want to hug her tightly, she curled her body and fell into a deep sleep. Looking at the kitten's cute and coquettish behavior that would never be displayed by the taciturn kitten, Noah was speechless for a long time. To be honest, seeing the kitten like this, Noah wondered if he should let the kitten return to her original state. If he let the kitten return to her original state and found out that she had fallen into such a strange state because she deliberately hid a power that she didn't want, the kitten would definitely be very sad, right? Moreover, if she returned to her original state, it would mean that the kitten would remember her unbearable past and return to her taciturn self. Compared to that, Noah felt that the current mentally unstable kitten that was as unrestrained and innocent as a normal kitten was more suitable for the kitten. However, this thought should not have existed. Even if there was an unforgettable sad past, it was also proof that he had once existed. If he didn't bear it, it would mean that he was escaping. Moreover, no one knew better than Noah what kind of life would be like without a past. The feeling of not knowing where he came from, not knowing what kind of existence he was, and not even knowing if he should appear in this world, if possible, Noah didn't want to experience it a second time. Presumably, the kitten was the same, right? Therefore, forgetting was definitely not a good idea. Only by facing the problem could he solve the problem. Rubbing the kitten's small head, Noah said as if he was talking to himself. In this world, there has never been a wrong power, only wrong people. As long as you use the power well, then even the power of a curse can become right. Don't reject yourself. Not sure if the kitten heard Noah's words, but the pair of ears of the sleeping kitten moved slightly, and then there was no other movement. Seeing this, Noah only rubbed the kitten's head lovingly, then stood up and walked out of the door. Lord Noah. Outside the door, Gulifia, dressed as a maid, bowed to Noah as if she had been waiting for a long time. Lord Sazax is waiting for your arrival. Sazax? Noah closed the door and looked at Gulifia. Is Sazax back? Yes. Gulifia turned to face Noah. This way, please. With that said, Gulifia walked in front and led the way for Noah. If someone who didn't know better saw this scene, who would have thought that this maid named Gulifia was a true Demon King level character? To outsiders, Gulifia claimed to be Sazax's maid. However, those in the know knew that Gulifia was Sazax's indispensable assistant. Gulifia was none other than Sazax's queen. She was known as the silver-haired Annihilation Queen, and was known as the strongest demon king in the entire underworld. Without a doubt, Gulifia was a demon king. That was why Noah could sense an aura that was only below that of a god slayer when they first met. Under Gulifia's lead, Noah came to a hall that was so luxurious that it looked like an audience with a king. He saw Sazax, whom he hadn't seen in a long time. And besides Sazax, Asashel was also there. "You guys are too much." Asashel complained to Noah as soon as he arrived. "I already said that I was planning to come to the underworld, but you guys left me behind and came here alone. We specifically asked for leave. I'm sure you know the reason." Noah raised an eyebrow. "By the way, why are you here too? Since all the people I need to observe are gone, what's the point of me staying in that academy?" Asashel said bluntly. "I had no choice but to come here directly." Compared to Asashel's words that were no different from a ruffian's, Sazax was like a big brother next door. He didn't have the majesty of a demon king at all as he greeted Noah with a casual smile. "I heard that you came back with Leah's, so I rushed over immediately." "Where's Leah's?" "I'll bring the family members to visit your parents first." Noah cut to the chase. "Let's not talk about that for now. You already know about the kitten's problem. How should we solve it?" It was only then that Sazax and Asashel turned serious and looked at each other. "That catnip must have lost his mind because the powerful key in your body stimulated his hidden power, right?" Asashel said. "So, Sazax and I both feel that it's because she was stimulated by your aura, causing the aura in her body to become chaotic. That's why she ended up like this." Immortal arts were different from magic or magic. Magic or magic was the power to create supernatural phenomena through controlling techniques. Immortal arts, on the other hand, were mainly manifested in the aspect of ki. The so-called ki referred to the source of power in life, and some people in Japan also called it chakra. Compared to magic power and light power, ki had no direct destructive power at all. It was similar to Noah's magic power. It was a kind of life force that everything had. Immortal arts were actually just controlling this kind of ki. Since ki existed in everything, those who knew how to use immortal arts were good at judging the flow of ki and could detect the location of each individual. They could also control the flow of ki in their body to strengthen the inside and outside of the body, or interfere with the ki in nature, causing trees to bloom or wither. Therefore, immortal arts were spells that manipulated the flow of life. Disrupting and blocking the opponent's ki could cause harm to life. Therefore, once the ki in a person's body was in disorder, it would cause all kinds of physical symptoms. If the ki in Kitten's body was in disorder, it would not be strange for her mind to suddenly go haywire. The most important thing is that Kitten has been suppressing her power, which led to her being stimulated by the powerful external ki. If she did not deliberately suppress her power, then this would not have happened. Sazax looked directly at Noah. "So, if you want Kitten to recover, you either have to let someone who knows how to use immortal arts adjust the flow of ki for her, or you can only let Kitten give up suppressing her power and let the suppressed and disordered ki flow smoothly on its own. Then, everything will be fine." Noah frowned. "Then, can you find someone who knows how to use immortal arts?" Hearing this, both Sazax and Athasher shook their heads. "It's not difficult to find someone who knows how to use immortal arts," Athasher said directly. "However, rather than letting outsiders solve this problem, I think it's better to let Kitten solve her own problem." In fact, Noah thought so too. The question was whether Kitten could truly accept her identity and power, and face up to her past. "I think, even in this state, the Kitten's own consciousness should still be awake." That was Sazix's conclusion. "If you talk to her, she will be able to hear you," Noah muttered to himself. One was a way to treat the symptoms. The other was a way to treat the root of the problem. Then, there was no need to consider which one to choose. "I'll try." Noah could only give this answer and immediately looked at Sazax. "Then, when should our duel begin?" "I wouldn't dare to be unprepared if I were to fight you, the most powerful Red Dragon Emperor in history." Sazax laughed bitterly. Then, as if he had thought of something, he suddenly smiled. Actually, what you want is not a duel with me, but a battle where you can exert your full strength, right? Noah nodded. Then, give me some time to prepare. Sazak smiled meaningfully. When the time comes, I'll make sure you're satisfied. Let's set the time for 5 days later. Athasher said. I'm also going to arrange about a month of special training for Leah's family. Your battle will begin then as well. Noah nodded heavily, his heart beginning to look forward to it. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.